Intelligent Money British GT Championship with the second visit of the year to the magnificent Grand Prix circuit at Donington Park. We were here just over a month ago in very different conditions. This afternoon the sun is out, the temperature is in the mid-20s and the racing action should be every bit as entertaining as it was on our first visit to the Leicestershire venue. Over a 3-hour race, the first of 2 3-hour races this season, as we make up for lost time in this slightly strange 2020 calendar. And it should be a really fascinating race with multiple strategies set to play out, a really closely matched grid, and a championship that is still, even at this late stage, absolutely wide open. Well, my name is Andy McEwen. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Graham Johnson on co-coms for this race. And Graham, this 3-hour race is not new to British GT, but it is the first time in quite a while that we've had a 3-hour race here at Donington Park. What unique challenges does that extra hour add into the drivers?
It makes an enormous challenge. It really does make a huge change. The strategy that happens where you used to do an hour guaranteed, now you're trying to go safety car hunting. You're trying to get one out and make sure that you capitalise on a safety car window. So you'll leave your driver out as long as you can. If the fuel tank will last long enough, and some of these cars will go up to an hour and a quarter, you'll try and get that hour and a quarter out of them. The only trouble is, if you've got a Pro-Am pairing, and one of those drivers isn't that competitive, you're losing a second a lap. Okay, it's only a second. Well, hang on a moment. You're doing 30, 40 laps. You're talking 40 seconds. This race won't actually really start to unfold until the last hour, so stick with it.
Yeah, absolutely. These longer races do tend to come right down to the very wire, and that is why we love them. Well, we are up here in the commentary box. Outside, the weather is pretty pleasant and it's attracted a nice crowd of people, but down in the heart of all of the action, we welcome a new member of our presenting team. Kelvin Fletcher, our usual presenter, sadly can't be with us this weekend due to other work commitments, but we have drafted in the brilliant Bryn Lucas to take his place, and Bryn is right down there on the grid ahead of the start of this race.
Cool. Talk about building me up there, Andy. That's a hard thing to top. Now, looking around here, it is beautiful weather. It's not really hot, so that's going to be interesting to see how the cars do out on track. Of course, a lot of racing happened today, so the track isn't green by any means. We're going to have a chat, it says adjusting his mask, very soon to Julian Penniston-Hill, who is from Intelligent Money, and we've got a big announcement really about the sponsorship of the championship, so can't wait to chat to him. And looking over my shoulder as well, I cannot wait to see a huge variety of supercars come onto the grid behind me. It is something I can't really believe. I'm pinching myself so much right now. And a 3-hour race coming up. I'm on cloud 9.
Yeah, it's going to be good, this, isn't it, I think. And I was saying earlier on to you, Graham, I'm a little bit jealous of Bryn because, especially in this long race where strategy is going to play such an important part, the pit lane is the place to be, because that ultimately is where this race could be won or lost. Yeah,
to be honest with you, I'm jealous of the whole thing. This is a little bit like, for me, watching an adult movie. It's nice to watch, but you'd rather be taking part in the action. And, you know, I'm a race driver and I've been racing for 18 years, and being in the pit lane, yeah, absolutely better than being in a comms box. Being in the race car itself, that's where the fun is. And I was watching the Formula One the other day when Pierre Gasly won his race, his first race, and I watched the pure emotion that came out of him. And I felt that, and I tell you what, unless you've raced, you will never know what it feels like.
Yeah, no, it's quite an experience, isn't it? And maybe we'll see some of that raw emotion a little bit later on today, depending on who we see on the top step of the podium. Right then, let's head back down to Bryn then, who has got our very special guest to have a chat to on the grid.
Yeah, very special guest indeed. Julian Penniston-Hill here from Intelligent Money. And Julian, what a big announcement we had. 5-year extension to the sponsorship contract. What's your reasoning behind that? Of course, COVID-19, very unusual times.
Yes, absolutely. And that is a lot of my reasoning behind it. You know, it's uncertain times. And so I wanted to do something to add a degree of certainty to a race I absolutely, or a championship I absolutely love. So that was one of the main reasons, the impact of this uncertainty.
Yeah, and for you, we're looking at this championship for the future then. Obviously, if you've got your mind set on 5 more years, you must be thinking it's going to grow and grow and grow.
To me, this is the beginning. Yeah, the first 5 years are the beginning. So, yeah, absolutely.
Well, we like the sound of that, that's for sure. Now, why in particular the British GT Championship?
There's many, many reasons. One, it's in my blood. We're not a faceless corporate sponsor. And the other is the synergies between the two events. What we do is intelligent money, and what all the teams here do at the British GT, it's all about teamwork, technology, communication, support to deliver the highest possible levels of performance without taking unnecessary risks. And so it's the same thing.
Yeah, but it's not your only connection, is it, to petrol heads in the world, piston heads and a whole lot more. Talk us through that sort of link and why the motorsport is in your blood.
It always has been, and it is. My daughter's only 15 and it's already getting into her blood. But Piston Heads was our first corporate sponsorship, their finance section, followed by Pure GT, and gosh, what else? We're actually launching our own club level racing team, Intelligent Money Racing, next year.
Yeah, TVR investment as well.
And I've taken a small shareholding in the new TVR Reboot, which is 70 years worth of British sports car history. I mean, it's all part of it. It's an essential part of my life. I need it like I need oxygen.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you mentioned the sort of the similarities between British GT and the teams and how they work together, and Intelligent Money as well. Is that something that you focus in on when you look at these sort of investments? You think, how's it going to work together? Do they have similarities?
Yes, I do, to a degree, but a lot of it is just the enjoyment of it. Being fortunate enough to be in the position to do this is one thing, but doing it because you absolutely love it is something completely different.
Yeah. And what about you getting into one of these cars and racing? What about you getting into one of the cars and having a little go around the track?
I was actually offered to get in that one earlier, but maybe later.
Yeah, just sit and watch. It's a lot easier, isn't it? A lot easier. Thank you so much, Julian. There you go. Julian giving us his time there. What an amazing announcement. There you go, Andy and Graham. 5 more years sponsorship. Not bad.
Exactly, which, Graham, I think is a real advert for the strength of this championship now. To have a title sponsor in the first place is great news, and to have a title sponsor that is making that long-term commitment to the championship, it goes to show that this championship is on the right track, isn't it?
It does. I mean, this championship is, I've been in this championship for 5 years myself, and it's just gone from strength to strength to strength. And I have to say, hats off to SRO, the series organiser, for putting on such a great show. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and here, what have we got? 24 cars on the grid. We've got millions of pounds worth of cars on the grid. And we've got race fans here too, haven't we, Andy?
We have lots of them basking in the sunshine, all socially distancing out in the wide open spaces at Donington Park and getting ready to enjoy a great race. Well, this is the car that will start from pole position, not for the first time this year, not for the second time this year, but the third time this year, because the Jensen Team Rocket RJM McLaren has been dominant in qualifying this year, and James Baldwin and Michael O'Brien did another sensational job in qualifying yesterday to put this car at the very front of the grid. Now, you were saying to me earlier on, or it might have been Bryn that was saying to me actually, that team, and James in particular, had sort of targeted the top 5 this year. If they could be top 5 in the points at the end of the year, he said that would be amazing. Now their mindset has changed. They're gunning for the title, and quite rightly so. They're third in the points. They've got a race win. They've got another podium as well, which they had last time at Brands Hatch, a race they arguably should have won as well. They're 100% in championship contention.
Yeah, well, I'm going to take full credit because I was Michael O'Brien's mentor last year. Yeah, and it's not like me. I was working with Michael last year, and his speed is never in doubt. Sometimes he's lacked confidence in himself, and I think this year, I had dinner with him last night, and his confidence, he's not the tallest guy, but he's grown in stature, and he really is doing a tremendous job.
Yeah, it's fantastic to see this great story to follow, isn't it, as we've gone through the year. Now, another great story this weekend is a returning face to the championship. This car is making its first appearance of the year. It's the 22 Balfe Motorsport McLaren, and one of the drivers is making a very welcome return. That is the driver, Warren Hughes.
Yeah, really good to be back. Yeah, it's been a while since sort of raced as a full-time profession, so it's Yeah, it's coming to a track with knowing that you're going to compete is very different to coming, whether it's coaching or doing something else. I've been around obviously a lot in the last few years, but with a coaching role to do, and but coming back as a full-on competitor is a different feeling altogether, and I love it. I've missed it. I have to be a little quite selfless in lots of respects. As I said before, it's a combined race, but it's also a big part of doing this event is to aid Jan's development. It's a longer term thing. We're not just looking at the end result of this race. It's a stepping stone to aid his development. When you put into a more competitive environment, that naturally drags more performance out of you, and you just absorb so much more information. I think we can get a very respectable result. I do believe that between us. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. We don't want to just be here to make up numbers. But first and foremost, it's about development. And if we have a strong qualifying early part of the race, keep out of trouble, we will get a decent result. Very much look forward to what the race brings, really.
Well, fantastic to have Warren Hughes back in the championship, a really well-regarded driver in British and international motorsport. It'll be fascinating to see how they get on in their first race back. Well, from McLaren, let's turn our attention now to Mercedes and the team that are second place in the championship, second place on the grid as well. Ram Racing, they missed out on the podium last time at Brands Hatch, but with no success penalty today, that 69 car, I reckon, could be a contender. Down there to have a word with one of the drivers, Patrick Kujala, is Bryn Lucas.
Yeah, absolutely, a contender indeed. So Patrick, we're just talking that you have no success penalty here, and there's a long straight down there, a lot of tarmac ahead of you. You've got a car there to your right-hand side that has got a little bit of a time penalty. So what are your thoughts ahead of the race?
Well, I guess a clean race is important. We have a good car. Just gotta keep our head down and focus on the race, clean race, like I said. And then we'll see after 3 hours where we are.
And what about your teammate, just one row behind you as well? Do you have a strategy for both cars, or are you just focused on your own?
I'm focused on my own. Yeah.
Honestly, there you go. What about your teammate then? Sitting in the car there, Sam, he's got to do a decent job from the start so that when you change over, you've got a nice, hopefully a lead to protect. But if anything unusual happens, what's the strategy? Is it all worked out?
It's all planned, so strategy-wise we're good, and I'm not worried about Sam. Sam is going to do a good job. He's good in the start. And fingers crossed everything goes well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much and good luck as well. There you go, Patrick, giving us the download. It's all worked out and hopefully goes to plan.
Sounds easy, really, doesn't it? I know I shouldn't really say this because I always put the mockers on teams when I shouldn't, but I really do think that car's got a good chance today. No success penalty. It's a good Mercedes circuit, this. And Patrick and Sam both have been on it all weekend.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with Sam. He's been in the series now for a couple of years, and he was a bronze-rated driver. He was an AM race driver. Now he's a silver. That's an aspiring professional driver. He's quite young. He's only about 25, 26, and he really does. He's working hard to get good at this. And if you watched his pace here last time, he was effectively on the pro pace. He was. And in the Ram team, they've got some really good people. The engineer on the car is Jeff Kingston. Jeff engineered me to the 2016 title. I know him very well. He's very talented, and I think we're seeing this car, which does suit this circuit, as you say. There's not that many long straights, and the car isn't that fast in a straight line, but my God, it's good in the corners and around the under braking. So yeah, totally agree. That could be a real contender for the win.
Now, third on the grid, our Barwell Motorsport. This is the highest placed of the Barwell cars on the grid. It's the Adam Ballan started and Phil Keane shared car that was supposed to win the championship this year, wasn't it? TF Sport didn't come back. This was their year. But Brands Hatch did not go to plan.
No, Adam, I think I've raced against Adam, and he's a really quick driver. And I think he's getting a little bit caught up by the pressure that's being put on him. I think he knows that it was his title to lose, and they started off superbly. Honestly, genuinely, on his day, he can be as fast as almost as fast as a pro. I mean, Phil Keane is a teammate. My God, I mean that is a benchmark. But he really can hold his own. But we've seen, and we've talked about this a lot, you and I, Andy, in the bar, and the psychology of racing. 10% hands and feet talent, and it's 90% in your head. And you need to have a strong head. And when there's this much pressure on you, when there are cameras in your face, when there's a Lamborghini factory driver driving alongside you, it can get to you. And your arms lock and tense up, and that costs tenths. So look, let's see how he goes. As long as he can relax into this, they should have won the title last year. I think they still can win it this year, but Adam needs to do what he does well, which is drive fast and worry about nothing else.
Fourth in the championship for the 72 car, but it's the sister car, number 78, started by Rob Collard today. They'll hand over to Sandy Mitchell at the first pit stop, that leads the championship. They got their first victory of the year at Brands Hatch last time out, which was a long time coming. It was a really, really popular victory, and we were able to catch up with Rob Collard to discuss that, amongst other things, ahead of the race.
My transition to British GT3 has been, a breath of fresh air really for me in my career. Done touring cars for many, many years, but I felt I'd got as far as I could go with it, and I just wanted to change. And I've been watching both my sons, Ricky and Jordan, both do GT4 and GT3 over the last few years, and thought, I should be doing this. So I'm really pleased to join Barwell as a race team. I've known the owner for a long time. Used to race touring cars against him back in the production touring car days. So me and Mark go back a long way. I'm very, very fortunate to have such a great teammate as Sandy Mitchell. Yeah, he's a real shining light in the GT world. And yeah, he's the guy that everybody wants to beat at the moment. I'm just hanging on to his shirt tails most of the time in practice and qualifying. So it's good for me to have his data. It's helping me improve my driving, my style, because I've got some reference. And but I've got a long way to match his pace. 2017 was the last time I led the touring car championship, so to be in GTs and be leading the championship at this point in the silver class and overall is fantastic, and we've got a good lead as well, 16 points. So it really is a lovely position to be in. But when you're in that position, sometimes you're under a little bit of pressure to always deliver, and you're the person that everybody's got to beat. So if we can come out of this weekend, sort of still with a lead, I think that would be very good, because we've got a 20-second time penalty to serve on Sunday, and that's going to be a really, really sort of hard sort of penalty to get over. 20 seconds around Donington Park is a long time.
Well, 20 seconds is a long time, but they were quick here in August when we last raced at Donington Park, and I'm sure they're going to be in contention again today. Here's how they line up then for round number 6 of the Intelligent Money British GT Championship. It's Jensen Team Rocket RJN on pole position, with James Baldwin starting the car, and Sam DeHaan second in the championship, second on the grid here today. Row 2 for the first of the Barwell cars, number 72, and Ian Loggy in the second of the Ram Racing Mercedes. And then on the third row of the grid, Rob Collard, championship leader for Barwell, has Michael Igoe in the WPI Motorsport Lamborghini for company on row 3. Row 4 for Lewis Proctor and Angus Fender, 2 McLarens, 1 from Optimum, 1 from 2Cs Motorsport. Then rounding out the top 10 on the 5th row of the grid are Richard Williams in the Stella Motorsport Audi and Richard Neary in the Team Aber Racing Mercedes. Outside that top 10 then, Jordan Witt in the second 2Cs McLaren, ahead of Nick Jones in the Team Parker Racing Bentley that won here last time out after an inspired tyre choice in race number 2. Then it's Stuart Proctor in the Balf Motorsport McLaren that he shared with Joe Osborne, ahead of Michael Brown in the Ultimate Speed Aston Martin, making its first appearance here this weekend. Then we're into GT4. Academy Motorsport won at Brands Hatch last time, and they're on pole position again here. They're really coming on form in the mid part of the year. The Mustang on pole ahead of Patrick Mathieson in the HHC Motorsport McLaren. Then row 2 of GT4 sees the Conor O'Brien TF Sport Aston Martin line up alongside the championship leading McLaren from HHC Motorsport, started by Gus Bowers. Then we have got Daniel Vaughan in the second TF Aston Martin, Mia Fluid in the only Pro-Am entry in GT4, the Balf Motorsport McLaren, and then behind them we have Jan Klingelberg in the second Balf McLaren, ahead of Century Motorsports BMW. Then it's the 33 Century Motorsport BMW started by David Whitmore, with James Kell in the Speedworks Toyota. They had brake problems in qualifying, that's why they're at the back of the grid. 3 hours of racing, round number 6 of the Intelligent Money British GT Championship bursts into life under the sunny skies at Donington Park, and it is James Baldwin on the inside line. On the outside line there is Sam DeHaan. There's contact further back. DeHaan's trying to get around the outside, and there's more contact. Michael Igoe goes around into the gravel trap in the WPI car, and Sam DeHaan spins as well. Sam DeHaan second in the championship, pointing the wrong way out of Redgate Corner. Well, this is the longest race of the year so far, and it's the first time that we've had first lap collisions. It's all kicked off through Redgate Corner. It looks as though the number 2 car has held on to the race lead at 72. No, it's the Ram Racing car into second. 72 has also been delayed in all of that and dropped way back. It's still Academy that lead in GT4 ahead of the 2 HHC cars. 58 ahead of 57. Well, that was not in the script, was it, Graham?
Yeah, no. Do not lean on each other on the first corner of a 3-hour race. And I watched it. I'm pointing at the screen with you saying, look, that Lambo is about to go. Give each other space. There was room on the exit. They could have done that. And then I think Sam possibly spun in sympathy. I'm not sure what happened there, but that car looked stuck. Could we see a safety car now? Yes, right, okay. Honestly, I think we'll probably see some pit stops. Get your AM driver out, get your pro driver in. They can do 100 minutes, okay? That's an hour and 40 minutes. That means that your AM only has to do an hour and 20 minutes. Often, in the case of Stuart Proctor and Joe Osborne, Joe's 2.5 seconds a lap faster. I think we're going to probably see in a second someone pull into the pit lane.
Yes, because there is no pit window. You have to make 3 pit stops, you have to make 3 driver changes. You can do them whenever you like, as long as neither driver does more than 100 minutes. And I thought Optimum were going to dive for the pit lane. Barwell do. Adam Ballon is in, the first to blink. They did this a few years ago at Silverstone, pitted at the end of lap 1, and it was an inspired decision then. So is this... and in also come both of the TF Sport Aston Martins. So you're absolutely right, although the Aston Martins, remember, are Silver Cup
That
entrants.
surprises me. That surprises me. I thought I would see Mia Fluid in the Balf Motorsport car stop. They're obviously not ready yet. Look, what we do in the garage, in the truck, for hours after hours is go through loads of what-if scenarios. What if it's a safety car after this amount of time? All of these guys know how long their fuel will last, how long they can go in a stint. They obviously know at TF something that the other teams don't know, because they've pitted 2 very quick drivers, putting in other 2 quick drivers. So they've got a strategy here that probably isn't immediately obvious to everyone.
Yeah, well, it'll play out over 3 hours, I suppose. Now, this is what happens. So, ignore the bodywork flying in the background for now. Let's focus on the 18 Lamborghini, which is on the outside line, and it's going to be contact with the number 10 car, which was started by Jordan Witt. But in fairness, he was also side-by-side with Lewis Proctor, and yeah, I'm not entirely sure how Sam Dehan ended up spinning. How do you read that? Just 3 cars going for a gap that wasn't really there?
I mean, there was room on the exit, wasn't there? So he could have released the steering wheel and gone a bit wide. I'm not going to blame him, though, because he got lent on by the 2C's car. I think if there's blame to be attributed, 2C should have got out the throttle and given room. He wasn't going to get through 2 cars. It was too much of a small gap. I'm going to guess that Sam got lent on the exit. That's unusual to drop it like that. We got TC, we got traction control on these cars. So normally, you wouldn't power oversteer around like that. And he's too good for that. I hope I'm right when I'm saying, but he is. So I'm going to assume that someone leant on the back of him and unsettled the car.
That is a possibility. We'll see if we can get another angle of that for you, maybe. Let's take stock of the situation then. The safety car is coming in this lap, actually, so we don't have much time to catch our breath. James Baldwin leads from pole position. Ian Logie is up to second. Rob Collard, the championship leader, is third. Lewis Proctor is fourth, and Angus Fender is fifth for 2C's Motorsport. That's the number 9 car, not the number 10 that was involved in that contact. In GT4, Matt Cowley leads in the Academy Mustang. He's actually got a GT3 car between himself then and Patrick Mathiasen second, and Gus Bowers third, 58 and 57, the 2 HHC Motorsport McLarens, second and third in GT4. The safety car is in. James Baldwin floors the throttle, and as we go on to lap number 3 of the race, we are started again. Now, the Aston Martins are still in the pit lane. They're going to lose a lap as a result of this early pit strategy. That adds further confusion to the mix as Lewis Proctor has a look at the inside of Rob Collard for third position into Redgate Corner. This early safety car has really disrupted the rhythm of the race, hasn't it? They haven't had time to warm themselves up gradually. It was a sudden rush of adrenaline, then it all stops, and then a lap later, they're straight back on it again.
You're right, and I'm about to go into a bit of a rant, Andy, because Loggie's going to make a mistake here. He's going to try and hold on to second. He was defending. Look, in the nicest possible way, he's not as quick as the cars behind him. It's a 3-hour race, easy for me to say. And what he needs to do is not lose time. And every bit of defence that he does, he will lose time. And that will come back and haunt them, the team, in 2.5 hours, 2 3/4 hours time. You can see already, look, he's desperate to hold on to that second place. If it were me, I'd be focusing on not losing time.
Yes, but we saw him do this at Brands Hatch last time, didn't we? And it was a pretty solid defence that he put up, but it definitely cost them a lot of time, and that's a big part of the reason that the number 2 car was able to pull out a massive lead. And of course, we're now in a very similar situation again here today. The number 2 car getting away, the number 6 car in second is a bit of a roadblock. Easier to overtake here, though, at Donington Park, I'd imagine, so there's maybe more of a chance that a Rob Collard or a Lewis Proctor might be able to break through his defences. Yeah,
I think you're right. I mean, the 2 hairpins, so the corners we've just gone round, are the only places where there's heavy braking zones. Everywhere else, it's all about trying to carry corner speed. And so, if you can carry as much corner speed as you can, roll the momentum into the high-speed corners, you can get a better exit and get a run on them. So it's not done on the brakes here, only at the 2 hairpins. Here it's done, you out-drag them from getting a better exit.
Sam Dahan here then is now getting past the GT4 leader, so they are now at least ahead of the GT4 pack. They did not lose a lap, crucially. The WPI car, did that lose a lap? Let me just have a little look back. Yes, it did. At least lost at least one, maybe two. So that is their race kind of over before it really began, which is a shame for a car that won here at in August, the last time we visited Donington Park. But at least the 69. I told you I shouldn't have tipped them to win the race, should I, on the grid? They are at least on the lead lap, and it is a long race. They're still in contention.
Yeah, they are still in contention. You know, I gave Loggy a bit of a hard time, but the person that actually is defending is Rob Collard. He's got into touring car mode, sprint race mode, and he's defending from Proctor, who I'm quite impressed with. Lewis has struggled at times in this McLaren. He was a second slower than his teammate in qualifying, which would have hurt. Trust me, that would have hurt him. They're both trying to get a factory drive with McLaren. But he's doing a fantastic job of actually giving Rob Collard a very difficult time. He might get through.
And Rob Collard, of course, also has to be mindful of this championship lead that he's got. He knows, okay, this is not the last round of the championship as it normally would be here in September at Donington Park, but he still knows that he can't really afford to have any damage or problems in this race. That would cost him the championship lead. So James Baldwin leads by 2.4 seconds then over Ian Loggy in second. Rob Collard is third for Barwell. Fourth place Lewis Proctor in the Optimum McLaren. Then to the 2-2C's car, number 9 Angus Fender ahead of number 10 Jordan Witt. Richard Williams for Stella Motorsport Stella Performance, is seventh ahead of Richard Neary, Stuart Proctor, and Nick Jones rounding out the top 10. In GT4, still Cowley from Matisse and from Bowers. Mia Flewitt is fourth position, and James Kell there, you can see in the Toyota right behind her, up into fifth position. The Toyota gaining ground. They had a cracked brake disc in qualifying, which stopped them getting out in session 2, so they automatically had to start from the back of the GT4 grid, and that Toyota was quick here a month ago, and it looks as though it's got the pace again here today.
Yeah, I mean, look, honestly, if you said I could drive any of the GT4 cars on the grid right now, I'm going to choose the Toyota. I think it's the fastest car on the grid. I do. They struggled a little bit in qualifying when we were here last time in the last sector, so perhaps they were struggling under the brakes a little bit, but that car is the quickest car on the grid, without a doubt. Something I want to point out to you, Andy, is Phil Keane, back in 21st position, but look at his lap time. They put their pro in. They got Adam out. This is what I was talking about earlier. I think they're on the lead lap. They're just about on the lead lap. What are they? Just over 1 minute and 7 seconds behind. This will play out very, very, very well for the Barwell car.
Yes, because that car lost ground at the start. Adam Ballon was held up by the spin from Adam Ballon at the first corner. He may have even been held up by Michael Igo's spin too. The idea of those incidents, by the way, all under investigation. So car 18 under investigation, also incident involving car 2 and 69. So this car, the Ram Racing car of Sam Dahan, it must have been contact with James Baldwin, the race leader. We didn't catch it, unfortunately, first time round, but it must have been contact with the McLaren, and that is under investigation as well. We'll keep you posted if we hear any developments on that. Back to Phil Keane, though. Phil Keane, Adam Ballon had lost a load of ground. He was stuck in the pack. He was never going to be able to race his way back to the front because the cars are all too evenly matched. He's an AM driver against lots of silver drivers. So they've pitted him, they've got Phil Keane in, and now when everyone else stops, that car might well come out as the race leader.
Let's see what happens. So Sam's trying to hang it on the outside. James has understandably ran him out wide. No, did nothing wrong there. Sam tried to hang it on the outside of lap 1 of a 3-hour race and he dropped it. You know what? Inexcusable.
Yeah, yes, avoidable, definitely, and I think it would be harsh if Sam were to be given a penalty, Michael were to be given a penalty, but we've seen it before. We'll let Peter Daly, our very capable clerk of the course, make the decisions and see what he comes back with.
Sam should have waited there, Andy. He should have waited because he's in championship contention and he's going for the lead. Now, we know how quick James Baldwin is. We know Sam's quick too, and I think they could have worked together to pull away together, and he's hung it out there, got it just a little too close to the loose stuff, to the gravel, and he's gone round all of his own accord, and I'll be surprised if there's a penalty on that. He's already taken his penalty anyway.
Well, yes, he has rather, hasn't he? He is 11th place now, Sam Dahan, 16.7 seconds off the race lead. We are watching the number 9 car here, Angus Fender, 5th position. 2C's Motorsport could do with a good result, really, couldn't they? They've had the speed all year long. We say this every race. Right from the word go at Alton Park, they were leading the way in the first race of the weekend with the number 10 car, and they were given a pit lane penalty, and that took them out of contention. 2Cs, though, I think this weekend, maybe that car looks good, looks as though it could be a contender for a race win. No further action, by the way, with any of those incidents. So car 18, no further action. Car 69 and 2, no further action. So Peter Daly agrees with you, Graham. No need for a penalty.
Yeah, good. That's the right order there. Look, I'm going to go on about Phil Keane again, because whilst we're watching this race, Phil Keane is pumping in 1 minute 27.5s. That's 3 laps that were faster than anyone in a row. The only other car in the 27s is Baldwin. Everyone else, Andy, they're doing 29s. He's lapping up to 2 seconds a lap quicker than anyone. Now, there he is, stuck back in 21st position. I think we're going to see him come right forward. When we look at the GT4, let's look at Cowley. Cowley started the season, and I'm going to be honest, I wasn't overly impressed. The job he did at Brands Hatch, I could not believe. That win was thoroughly deserved. And Jordan Albert, who I know well, I've raced against him for the title actually in 16. He's a very, very talented guy. And he never really got the break he deserved. The Mustang's a fantastic car, arguably has a very good balance of performance, but look, you still have to drive the thing well, and Cowley is coming on leaps and bounds in this car, and Mathiasen as well, hanging on in the HHC. He's showing a clean pair of heels, isn't he, to Bowers? It's impressive. They're championship leaders.
Indeed they are, and they won, of course, here at Donington, the 57 car in the sprint race a month ago. Patrick Mathiasen here is catching Matt Cowley, who was quicker over the last couple of laps from the Ford Mustang in front. Academy definitely getting to grips with that car now. Remember, they've moved across from Aston Martin to the Ford. It's the only Mustang on the grid this year as well, whereas last year there were the 2 Multimatic cars, there was the race performance car as well. So they've got no one else's data to feed off. It's going to take you half a season to get to grips with the car, and now here we are halfway through the season, and they're setting the pace.
It can often be an advantage to being the only car on the grid, because if you're driving it, as everyone assumes that's as fast as it can go, so you can get a better balance of performance. They can punish the car less. But we're on board here with Gus Bowers, and let's see how he gets on and how he compares. So he's turned a little late there, running a little wide. You need to be careful on track limits. Jonathan Palmer, the circuit owner, is obsessed with his grass. And so, yeah, so here we go here. Look, this is a fascinating battle. This is 2 AMs together. Nick Jones, who won here last time in the Bentley, and Stuart Proctor, who's in his 2nd ever British GT race. He's only ever driven this car a handful of times. Last time he did the whole race on wet tyres. This is his first race on slick tyres. And he's ahead of a former race winner.
Yes, and these were the 2 cars that did battle for the race lead in that race, the 2nd race at Donington last time, with the other drivers in. It was Scott Malvern versus Joe Osborne. And it was the other way round. The Bentley ahead of the McLaren, and Joe said, I was much, much quicker until we got out of those hairpins, and that Bentley has so much torque, and it just drags away from the McLaren coming out of the corners. Now, though, that's what Nick Jones has got to use, not to defend, but to attack. He's got to pick his moment and attack at a part of the circuit where that car is strong.
Yeah, and he is quicker. I mean, what did he go? 7/10 of a second faster on the previous lap. I think he does need to clear him. Stuart, I know Stuart. I don't think he'll make him work too hard for it. Stuart knows his job. Stuart's job is to bring that car home for one of the fastest McLaren drivers on the grid. I mean, Joe was the quickest McLaren in qualifying yesterday, but you have to remember that as a Pro-Am pairing, they carry less weight in the car. And they carry about 40 kilos less than the silver parents. And 40 kilos, well, what's that? Well, actually, genuinely, 3, 4, 5 tenths of a second. And whilst that doesn't sound much, trust me, if I'm 2 tenths off someone, I'm furious. If I'm 3 tenths off, I retire.
Yes. It can be frustrating, and some circuits are harder to carry that weight out than others. And of course, if you end up, this is something else they have to consider, I suppose, with the stint lengths. Yes, and Phil Keane is a prime example of this. The number 72 Lamborghini, they've made this early pit stop. Phil Keane is going to be in the car now, we presume, for quite a long time. That means they're going to have to keep the tyres alive for a bit longer. And okay, they're not a silver car, but if a silver team were to try this, that extra weight would make that job a little bit harder. Well, Adam Ballon has been in this car for a lap. Let's find out how he felt after that lap. Bryn Lucas is down at the Barwell garage with him.
Yeah, I am indeed. Adam here. That was a short-lived first lap for you, but tell us from your point of view what happened, what you can see ahead.
Well, I was tucked up behind the McLaren, the pole sitter, and I think Sam got a good start around the outside. Next thing, we just got around Redgate. Next thing I knew, the Merc came spearing across the track. I was going to go left, and then it carried on spearing. I had to go right and just about missed it.
Now, we always see very quick strategies in this one. Was this a strategy you and the team had discussed if there was an off straight away?
Not with me, I just do what I'm told, so so I just got told to box, so I boxed.
And when was the call then for you to come in? Was it immediate or did you
No, sort of halfway round, I was coming up the back straight, they said, oh, okay, quick box, and I was like, fine. You know, they said, just don't argue with stuff, and do what you're told and try and drive fast, so that's my job.
Yeah, that's the last time out of course. Last time out, you didn't have the result you'd like. You had a good result here at Donington, so hopefully you can.
Yeah, exactly. Back to that sort of result that we had last time here rather than the Brands one.
Yeah. Any idea when you're going back in?
No, actually, I don't know. I'm going to rest for a bit now. After my long stint.
Thanks, Sir Adam. Doing as he's told there. Back to you.
Yeah, I'm sure he needs time to rest after that super long stint that he's just completed. But all joking aside, I mean, the driver is sometimes the last to know about these decisions, aren't they?
They are. What's interesting about Adam Ballan, other than that... Oh, hang on, what have we got here?
Ian Loggy. That is Ian Loggy from second place off at the old hairpin. This is major drama. He's going to get the car going, thankfully, so no safety car.
That's a bit of his car on that's possibly left on the track. Has something ripped off the bottom of that car? Let's see what happens here.
And he lost it on his own.
Looks like he's gone on his own. Oh, I see. It was that
it's a
Pirelli side.
Yes.
But, okay, so he's just had a spin. Look, he can recover from that. But, I mean, look, his teammate right now will be absolutely furious with him. As I keep saying, it's a 3-hour race. It's a marathon. Your job is to be in contention for the last half hour or so. But anyway, back to what we were talking about before with Adam. So other than the fact that Adam has a glorious mane, does he not? The best hair in the paddock, and if it wasn't for COVID, I'd be giving him a stroke in his hair. But look, he's a businessman. He's an incredibly successful businessman. He founded Innocent Smoothie Drinks, and so he's a very wealthy man. And what did he say? I just do as I'm told.
Yeah.
And so these businessmen come into this environment, and they effectively become employees for the first time in their life. And another point that's really important. He has to, and genuinely this is the thing, he has to plan when he uses the toilet. So before you, no, genuinely, Andy, before you race, you have to make sure that you're hydrated. And you assume you're going to race for an hour. But now he hasn't. He doesn't know he's going to be in the car next. So he'll be absolutely paranoid about drinking too much, because if you drink too much and you need to use the loo when you're driving, I'm telling you, it costs you so much time, and it's a genuine factor in endurance racing.
I can imagine, and in motorsport commentary as well, it can sometimes be a factor. This is Rob Collard's on-board view of the Optimum Motorsport McLaren, which was applying the pressure into the Melbourne hairpin, not quite able to go through. This is now the fight for second position. Rob Collard has inherited P2. As much as Patrick Ayala won't be very happy, Emma Berman won't be very happy with Ian Loggy, I don't think James Baldwin will be either, because of course Loggy was that quite handy buffer between the race leader and the rest of the Silver Cup entrants behind, who have now been freed. Okay, Baldwin is 8.5 seconds up the road, but I don't think he's going to be taking the same amount of time out of them now.
No, I mean, but then again, look at his pace. James is so impressive. He's in the 28s. He's just had another 28 lap now, whereas Rob, his last lap was a 30.1. And so I think we will see Rob put his head down now. I think probably he's managed to break Lewis Proctor's spirit. And I think probably the next battle we're going to witness is this one, what we're on board with now. Fender. We're going into traffic as well. And so, look, Mia in the Balf McLaren held him up enormously there, but then I'm telling you, next Proctor will get held up. It depends where you catch people, and it's luck. And so... Look, we're going to go into the old hairpin now. It's a very fast corner, fourth gear. Tuck it in. Don't take too much exit curb. There's a sensor out there. If you trigger that sensor, and we can see track limits going off left, right and centre, you get a time penalty. You get 10 seconds. If you keep doing it, you get a drive-through penalty. And so not going too wide is important, and holding it in there is important. But I think, as I say, what we're here, the car looks better to me on board than the Optimum McLaren in front of it. He's turning it in. There's the rear of the car is absolutely glued, but there's a bit more movement going on when Lewis is driving. You can see the car sliding a bit more. So I think that Fender's car is a little better balanced than the Optimum car.
Both of these drivers, of course, are silver-graded drivers, so their pace should be equal, the weight of the car should be the same as well, and just set up differently. Now, this is drama for Century Motorsport, the number 43 car, which has had a bit of a torrid time this season. Ben Hurst had started the car. This is not, though, a mandatory pit stop. We'll try and get Bryn Lucas on the case down there for Century, see what the problem is. Not been a real year to remember for them, has it, so far, Century?
Well, they put Ben Green in the car at Brands Hatch, and the car came alive. I think it was very good for Ben Green's career. Nathan Freaker owns that team, talented racer in his own right. He runs a good team, and that car is unquestionably quick. You do need luck as well, you know.
This is, by the way, fight for position that we're seeing here. This is the 72 car overtaking 26, which is Michael Brown in this new Ultimate Speed Aston Martin. Brand new chassis, that, only 2 weeks old, that Aston Martin. This is already its second race meeting as well. They were out in GT Cup here a week ago, so they're getting some miles under their belt, but Michael shares the car with Matt Manderson, the pro driver. He is the AM. They've just lost a position there to Phil Keane, so Phil Keane, despite having made a pit stop, has just moved up into 12th position. The next car for Phil to overtake is not for position, but it is a quick car. That is Michael Igoe in the WPI Motorsport Lamborghini. Now, of course, they weren't able to take advantage of that safety car to pit early and get the pro in because they were the cause for the safety car. By the time the car was hoiked out of the gravel, the race was restarting again. The damage for them has been done, though. They are a lap down now, the number 18 car, and it's so hard in a field this competitive to get that lap back. They're going to have to try and roll the strategy dice if they can at some point later on.
Yeah, they are. Interesting to watch the body language of that Lamborghini, of Phil Keane's car. It's actually moving around a lot. It doesn't look that stable. I'm not convinced that car's set up as well as perhaps Adam Ballon will want it to be. So I'll be interested to see what Adam's pace is in it. It looks a little nervous. He's turning it in, it's understeering, and then it's flicking a little bit into oversteer. But then look at the pace of Keane. He's so quick. He's, if not every lap the fastest car, it's every other lap. And that's going through traffic.
Yeah, this is seriously impressive, but this is what we expect from Phil Keane. This is what we expect from Barwell Motorsport. Donington Park has not been a happy hunting ground for them in the past, but they showed last time we were here that they have the pace around this place, and Phil Keane showing it again right now. This is Sam Dahan then in the 69 car. So Sam Dahan is 7th position now. He's picked up a few places since the restart. His next target is going to be Richard Williams in the Stellar Performance Audi, which is about 2.5 seconds up the road from him. No damage done to the car, no major issue, I suppose, as Ian Lockey recovers to take ninth place away from Stuart Proctor. But having confidently predicted that Mercedes was going to be the car to have here this weekend, all of the Mercedes at the front of the field seem to have run into trouble. At least it is a 3-hour race. OK, that means you probably shouldn't be hitting trouble that early in the race, but at least you have time to fight back.
Yeah, and it's interesting to watch them both because they're both driving very quickly, and you know why? Because they both made mistakes. I tell you now that the ego is a wonderfully good thing to make you go fast when you've made an error. We're seeing Nick here making his way through traffic. It's a new experience for him, Nick, in the Bentley. He's used to being in the GT4 car. That's right, the GT4 car's coming back at him, but he's used to it. And I did a GT3 race here a couple of years back, and it's such a different thing for you to experience. You're used to looking in the mirror, all of a sudden you're looking forward. And there's a hesitation that Nick will be getting used to, being the overtaker rather than the overtakee. And so I think he's adapted really, really well, actually. It's that car's not easy to drive. We've seen some talented drivers in the Bentley, and in the wet we know it's an absolute beast. And he's doing a very nice job in the way he's getting on, and Scott's doing a superb job.
Well, let's head back down to the pit lane, shall we? We saw the 43 Century Motorsport BMW heading into the pits earlier on, and hopefully to fill us in a bit more about what's going on down there is Bryn Lucas.
Yeah, thanks very much there, Andy. I've got Ben Hurst here in the car when you had to come in. Ben, what was the problem with the car?
It seemed we had to have a brake issue or something. The pedal was just going longer and longer, and all of a sudden we couldn't stop anymore. So.
But you said you felt that around 5 minutes ago, so you must have had a few laps trying to work out what the problem was?
Yeah, we had a few laps warning on the pedal going long, and then all of a sudden we just couldn't continue anymore, so had to bring it in.
So would that be a brake pressure problem or something more concerning? Although that's quite a concerning problem.
I think we're going to have a good look into it. Could be heat, could be pressure. I was tucked up right behind the McLaren, so not getting as much fresh air as normal. So the brakes are usually very good on these cars. Could have been a faulty disc or something from the manufacturer of the disc. So everything can happen. So 3-hour race. Hopefully we'll get back out there.
Yeah, not the greatest start, but thanks very much for chatting to us. Good luck if you get back out there.
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Don't worry about it. Just good luck, take a rest, and enjoy the rest of the race, hopefully.
Okay, thank you.
There you go, then. Back to you, Andy and Graham.
Noisy places, pit lanes, aren't they? Especially when there's a GT race going on. Good work there. Bryn getting straight to the bottom of the story. Is this a particularly hard circuit on brakes? I don't imagine it to be, but then that final sector is all very stop-start.
It's funny, you know, because there are some cars that seem to be hard on their brakes here. I've never driven a car that's hard on them, but I remember vividly the McLaren in, I think it's 2007. Joe Osborne who's normally sat here rather than me, thanks for the job, Joe, he lost the pedal. The pads failed after an hour and a half round here. So I think it's really about the heat. There's not much space if long straights to dissipate the heat. Brakes need cooling. So whilst they're not working that hard, they don't have a huge amount of time to cool around here. And that can lead to an awful lot more brake wear.
Yeah, that is a good point. We've had a few brake issues this weekend, that's why I asked. So I wonder if over a 3-hour race, whether that's going to become a factor. Rob Collard here in second place, still not quite able to match the lap times being set by James Baldwin, but they're not losing the same sort of time as they were when they were stuck behind Ian Loggy. Collard still second ahead of Lewis Proctor and Angus Fender. We're already ticking towards the half-hour mark. Now, those who have not taken advantage of that early safety car to pit, they're going to go the full hour then, I would imagine, or certainly close to it, because although they'd love to stick the pro in for as long as possible, they do have this minimum driver time to think about, don't they?
Yeah, what you want to do is get your pro in for 100 minutes. But it's so difficult to do that because you also want that safety car, as I was saying. But some cars will only just get to 1 hour. So I know my McLaren 570 GT4, it will just do an hour. But the 720S, the GT3, Michael O'Brien reckons it'll get to about an hour and 15. You will keep that driver in for that amount of time. It's such a balancing act, and all the planning in the world cannot possibly prepare you for what's going to unfold. And what unfolded, a safety car before we'd gone round one corner.
Exactly, you can make all these elaborate plans, but then a safety car or some other unforeseen situation can completely change your plan. And don't forget that when we get to the final pit stop at the end of the race, that is when the success penalties are served. So the drivers, the teams that were on the podium last time out at Brands Hatch, first, second and third overall in GT3 and GT4, they have some extra time to serve. And of course the car that's second in the race right now, that black number 78 Lamborghini, won at Brands Hatch last time, so they will have 20 seconds to serve in the pit lane. There is Angus Fender still fourth, Jordan Witt, his teammate, in fifth position. They struggled a bit here in the wet, didn't they? A lot of teams struggled here in the wet, actually, in August. Teams that we expected to be a little bit quicker, but generally they were the teams with the least experience of either their cars or this championship in general. They were the ones that struggled in the wet. I think everyone, when they woke up this morning and they looked at the weather forecast and they saw it was going to be dry and sunny, probably breathed quite a sigh of relief.
Yeah, I think it's the McLaren.
Right.
The McLaren, all of the teams in the McLaren, with the exception of Balfe, who had Stewart in the car, with no disrespect, all of the other teams were brand new to the car. COVID has meant there's been very little time to practice, and the weather has been fantastic. And so we had a wet race, and all of a sudden they didn't know what they were doing. Here we have now an episode where we're looking at Sam Dehan. I talked about coming back from making a mistake. Sam Dehan is on a mission, isn't he? Look at Sam's pace. He's lapping in the 28.7s. I think he'll be all over. Well, I think he'll be past Richard Williams very soon. It'd be interesting to see how hard Richard fights it. Sam's faster. Sam's lapping at a pace similar, if not quicker, than Phil Keane.
Yeah, the only person faster than Sam Dehan on the previous lap was James Baldwin, the race leader. Phil Keane in a bit of traffic, of course, a bit further down the order. But Sam Dehan is flying, but then the car qualified second on the grid, and we did say this is a good Mercedes circuit. It's a circuit that suits the front engine cars, it seems. Those long sweeping corners really play into their hands, and as he catches Richard Williams, he's kind of spurring the Audi on, and they're both reeling in the number 10 in front. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility here that within the next 10 minutes or so, Sam Dehan could be back in the top 5, and that, all things considered, would not be a bad way to round out the first third of the race. Into the final corner, the Audi takes a wider line in. Again, the front-engine Mercedes, it grips better through the middle of the corner, takes a tighter line, but then off the corner, the Audi carries more momentum down the straights. 3 different cars, they're all designed differently, they're all set up differently, they're all going to have different strengths and weaknesses, and this is one of those really fascinating British GT battles where each car is going to have a certain strength, a certain weakness, and we don't really know how it's going to play out in a three-way battle.
Yeah, the front of the Mercedes is very good. It's a front-engine car. The other 2 cars are mid-engine, and you can see that the front end on Sam's car is very good, by which I mean when he turns, it's immediate. So you're probably having more trouble to get the power down than the other guys. Whereas what we see with the Audi, it's all about, as you say, carrying corner speed. They're unquestionably catching Witt. I've been watching Witt's lap times, and I think he's probably spending a little bit too much time looking in his rear view mirror, because we know from Fender that the car's quicker than that. And Witt last time was down in the 1 minute 30 somethings. In fact, he was one of the slowest GT3 cars on the last lap without traffic. So clearly he needs to start putting his focus forward. Sam is going to do a recovery drive of his life here.
Yeah, this is exactly what he needed to do, and he'll be fired up after the spin that he had at the very first corner. They had a golden opportunity here to take advantage of a good grid position. No success penalty because they were fourth at Brands Hatch last time out. Joe Osborne always tells me that if you just finish fourth in every race, you'll probably win the championship because you never have success penalties. You're still scoring good points. Oh, that was a late lunge up the inside of the Audi there into Goddard's, but Sam Dahan not quite able to do it, and now they are about to encounter traffic. The number 33 BMW of David Whitmore, the all-AM entry for Century Motorsport, and also the GT3 Ultimate Speed Aston Martin of Michael Brown is about to go a lap down, and this again presents an opportunity for overtaking.
Yeah, did you see that, Andy? Richard Williams had to get on the brake pedal on the exit. That's cost him dear. I mean, okay, he's cleared it now, but I think he really is focusing in the wrong area.
Well, out of the old hairpin goes this pair. They're still racing hard, but no way through for Sam Dahan. Sam Dahan then in the number 69 car, and the sister car, of course, has also been in strife in this race. Ian Loggy having a spin in the number 6 Ram Racing Mercedes at the old hairpin. Jelmer Berman, his co-driver, is down in the pit lane with Grim.
Yes, as you say, Ian having a bit of a moment. Jelmer, you were looking on when Ian had his moment there. What are your thoughts when you're watching the screen? Because obviously the race plan goes out the window.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, it's a long race and it's very difficult to predict what happens with safety cars and so on. So there is anything but a fixed strategy. For sure, you know, you always want to stay in front.
Could you work out what actually happened on that first turn? Could you see what happened? Do you know what the team was saying?
No, I mean, obviously there were some back markers, 2 of them, which, you know, they are fighting each other. So a big chance it has something to do with that, because, you know, when 2 back markers are fighting, then they don't mind the mirrors as much, and I can imagine it had something to do with that, because Ian's been very consistent, also, you know, here, but also in other races, and normally he doesn't make mistakes on his own. So it's a shame, but the race is still long, and we have some opportunities left.
Yeah, well, he's just overtaken the number 30, the Audi, so he's climbing back up the order, which hopefully puts you in a strong position when you get your turn, your first turn in the car.
Exactly, yeah. Hopefully, I think actually it was the 69 that overtook the 30, because we're a bit too far behind that, unfortunately. But Ian's overtaking some other cars. He's making up for the damage, so let's try and make it a good end result.
Yeah, great stuff. Thank you very much there, Jelmer.
Thanks.
Back to you two, Andy and Graham.
Yeah, 2 Ram Racing cars this year, of course. That's doubled their workload, but also doubled their information that they're able to gather over a weekend. But it is indeed the 69 car that we just saw gaining a position, getting ahead of Richard Williams in the Audi. That is now 6th place for Sam Dahan. Ian Loggy, whose teammate Jelmer Berman we just spoke to, down in 9th position at the moment. But as you can see, actually, the second of the Pro-Am cars at the moment in the race, with only Richard Neary in the Team ABBA Racing Mercedes in front, and Richard Neary is less than 10 seconds ahead of Ian Loggy. So again, all is not necessarily lost. The move that Sam Dahan just made, we saw it begin at Goddard, really. He'd been having a little nibble at the inside line for the last few laps. He finally got that substantial nose of the Mercedes in the gap, and then by the time they got to Redgate Corner, I think Richard realised he was beaten.
Yeah, Richard is an old pro. Sorry for the description, Richard, but he is. He knows what he's got to do. He knows it's all about not losing time. So you saw he didn't fight it hard at all. But Sam, look at him, he's on an absolute mission. You see him working at the wheel there. I think he'll catch Whit and be past him in no time. That'll be up to 5th place.
Yeah, that is impressive after falling right to the back of the GT3 category. Right at the front of the GT3 category, though, is the number 2 McLaren, and this is James Baldwin then leading the way, 14.5 seconds ahead of Rob Collard now. Don't forget, this car finished 2nd at Brands Hatch, and will have to serve, therefore, a 15-second success penalty. And it's already nearly 15 seconds ahead of the rest of the field, but that penalty will not be served till the final pit stop, so long way to go yet. The gap, by the way, between Baldwin, the leader, and Phil Keane, who is the first of the GT3 cars to have pitted down in 10th place, is hovering at around about 65 seconds, and a GT3 minimum pit stop is 110 seconds. So yeah, definitely Phil Keane looks as though he is going to come out with the race lead once the pit stops are done. Rob Collard, though, well, will he be ahead of the Optimum Motorsport car by the time we get to the first round of pit stops? Certainly Lewis Proctor is hoping not. He's really attacking Rob Collard, and I noticed there's a bit of damage to the left rear corner of Rob's car. Next time we see an external shot, just a bit of the bodywork above the left rear wheel has been loosened, and so I don't know whether maybe the McLaren has had a bit of a bite out of the left rear corner. We should just see it as it turns into the, we didn't quite, but just a little bit of bodywork loose. Rob Collard, that won't bother him. He's used to close and physical racing from his experience in touring cars, and that, I suppose, is one of the things that you really can translate into GT racing. It's a completely different discipline, but when it comes to wheel-to-wheel racing, either attacking or defending, Rob Collard's your man.
In the paddock, we were all joking about Rob Collard when he joined. Sorry, Rob, but we were, because we all just assumed he'd just slam into everyone. He has adapted so well. He's got a really cool head on him, actually. And do you remember when it was Sam Tordoff came in, and he had to go, he went to Bar 1 as well, and actually he really struggled. He found the concept difficult, and he's gone back to touring cars over the years, whereas here Rob's actually, I think, found his niche.
Yeah, one thing Sam said that he didn't like was having to share a car with somebody else. Not that he's precious about it being his car, but setup. He was quite sensitive about setup, and the problem was that if his co-driver wanted a slightly different setup, he struggled to compromise, whereas Rob Collard, again, such an experienced driver, he's driven all sorts of cars, and he knows how to drive around a car that isn't necessarily exactly to his liking, and that is quite a big part of GT racing. Anything where you have to share the car with another driver, if you don't have exactly the same driving style and exactly the same taste in car setup, that can be a challenge.
Yeah, it is. It's how the garage fights break out. It's always how them out. One person wants the car to be loose on the ear, the other guy wants the front to be a little bit less grip and a bit more forgiving. Andy, I'm just watching something of interest. I'm watching Lewis, and he keeps on pulling out, even though he's nowhere near Rob Collard. He keeps pulling out of his slipstream. It's almost like he's got he's trying to cool the car. I've watched it a couple of times now, and he's moving over to the left or the right-hand side to get out of the way, but he's nowhere near close enough to have a look. So it's something worth watching there. He's doing that for a reason. He's moving very deliberately.
Yeah, it can sometimes be to do with temperature. It can sometimes just be you're trying to distract the car in front. I mean, he's
too far back for that. This is why I'm finding it curious. I've seen it twice now. He might be getting calls on the radio just to get a bit of clean air.
Maybe. Well, we will perhaps be able to find out when he gets out of the car, if he is willing to tell us, that is. But the Optimum car, the Optimum team, they know what they're doing. They're a top team, but they are, again, getting used to a new car this year. A bit like we said about Academy and GT4, going from Aston Martin to Ford Mustang. Well, Optimum have gone from Aston Martin to McLaren, and it's just taking them a little bit longer, I think, to find the sweet spot with it. 2C's Motorsport, a brand new team altogether, and they chose McLaren as their car of choice. They've got two of them. They look fantastic, and they are desperate to try and get a good result out of this weekend. And this car we're on board with, Angus Fender, is running in fourth place, 1.9 seconds behind those two that we were watching, but matching them on lap time. So he'll be sitting there spurring Lewis Proctor on, won't he, saying, go on, have a go at him, make him defend, attack, because if they start racing each other, it won't take long for that 1.9 seconds to disappear.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to have stayed on board with him a bit longer there. I thoroughly enjoy watching other people's driving styles, and Angus he was quite smooth there. Interesting to note how he's using first gear in both hairpins.
Yeah.
I imagine viewers find that a bit strange. In a road car, you use first gear to pull away and you don't go near it. But these cars, you need to get all of that torque. And sometimes the torque's quite high up. So you put it down to first gear to move on. But look at Sam DeHaan's recovery. You have to ask the question, if he hadn't made that mistake on the first lap, I think he'd have been right with James Baldwin. I really do. Fantastic recovery drive, but what could have been?
Yeah, his lap times are on a par with Baldwin at the moment. So, yeah, the 69 car is every bit as quick as the race leader. And, again, long race, 2 hours and 20 minutes to go. All it takes is another safety car, and they're right back up there. Right now, though, his priority is getting past Jordan Witt in the number 10 McLaren, and he's caught him pretty rapidly. But, again, he's now got to try and figure out where the best place to attack is going to be. This is another different car for him to go up against, the McLaren. And so it may be that he has to pick his moments a little bit differently. Goes through the Melbourne hairpin. The McLaren has such good torque out of the tight corners. It really is a great all-round car. Good grip from the front through the high-speed corners. Great acceleration out of the tight corners as well because of that torquey engine. And a bit of traffic up the road as well. So Sam is going to be looking to try and apply the pressure here. I don't think he's quite close enough to Redgate corner. Going to flash the lights at him just in case that distracts him again. A little jink to the left, that little flash of colour in the mirror can sometimes put the driver in front of. But Jordan Witt is a relatively experienced GT driver these days. I don't think that's going to work, is it?
Yeah, let me tell you what really incites me when someone starts flashing their headlights. I don't think it's going to, it doesn't distract me, it annoys me. And so, really what you need to do is you need to focus on getting past people. And I have to say that Whit's using an awful lot of curb. If we watch him through the chicane on this lap, as we get the chance to see it, he took a tremendous amount of exit curb, which actually can unsettle the car. We can see that Sam is quicker. He's quicker in turn 1. He's quicker throughout most of the circuit, but where he's losing time, he's actually in the 2 hairpins, which surprises me, because this car's normally very strong under brakes, but clearly it's good in the high-speed stuff this weekend.
And using those curbs, that adds wear and tear to the car. And again, over such a long race, you've got to be mindful of that. You have to pace yourself. It's all well and good going hell for leather in the first hour and a half or so of the race, but if you take too much out of the car, you can run into trouble later on. The headlight flashing is getting more and more urgent now from Sam Zahan.
The way he's going.
Won't he just? Yeah, that headlight flashing switch on the wheel is getting work over, because he is now starting to get a work over from Richard Williams behind. That's what's making him a little more impatient to make this move stick. Second place Rob Collard comes through, 16 seconds now behind James Baldwin. He's more or less matching the leader now. As into the pit lane comes the Speedworks Toyota. So this is the first of our green flag pit stops. Is this a scheduled stop? It may well be. As I said, they have to pit 3 times over the course of the race, so 45 minutes would be the average length for the stint. We're just shy of that, and this is James Kell coming in to hand over the number 23 car to Sam Smelt.
Yeah, look how relaxed they are. I think people are so used to seeing Formula 1 stuff, but in this we get time. You've got minimum time to do a driver change, and the calmer you are, the better it is. And so many times we've seen people fluff their bells, and that can cost you a race win. So lovely to see them being very calm there. Sam has dropped back a little bit in traffic, hasn't he? He's got to focus. He's got the measure of Whit in front of him, and I think the car is clearly quicker in sectors 1 and 2. Baldwin now coming up behind some traffic. What's he got now? A nearly 16-second lead, and every lap he's in the 28s. Every lap, Andy.
Yeah, really consistent and consistently quick. This is an important overtake he's about to make as well, because that's the WPI Motorsport car of Mike Liger that is already 1 lap down, and it's about to go 2 laps down. One of those laps was lost because of the spin, the other lap lost because of delays associated with the spin, but also this rocket ship pace from the Jensen Team Rocket RJN McLaren out in front. Caught a glimpse there of your GT4 leader. That is still Matt Cowley in the Academy Motorsport Mustang. The 58 McLaren there is second in the class, and that is heading for the pit lane, I thought it was, as too is Richard Williams in the Stella Motorsport, Stella Performance Audi. The Bentley is in as well for Team Parker Racing, so the McLaren is probably the most significant of these here. Patrick Mathiasen from second place in the class, ready to hand over to Jordan Collard. So pit lane, I think, is about to become quite a busy place.
Yeah, really well done by Mathiasen now. I don't know if you noticed, but he put his indicator on. He signalled before the last corner to the GT3 car behind him that he was going in the pits. Clear communication is everything. It didn't cost him any time. I'm surprised to see these early pit stops, but I think what it is the grid's a little bit, the track's a little bit spaced out at the moment, and if I were engineering these cars, I think that at the moment, commentators curse, but at the moment, I would say that a safety car is fairly unlikely. So what they're trying to do is get their fastest driver in now, not lose the time, because these are early stops.
They are, although as I said, it's 3 mandatory stops, so I suppose if you split it into quarters, you get about, I can't count, but about 45 minutes or so. So I guess we're just on the fringes of it. And as you say, a lot of these are AM drivers coming in to hand over to pros. Rob Collard still being attacked here by Lewis Proctor, who is now fully alongside, going up towards Goddard's hairpin. This is for second place overall. The Optimum McLaren on the outside. Can't go right round the outside. Can he get the cutback across the start-finish line? No. Rob Collard hangs on again. Remember, Rob did that epic stint here in that first race a month ago where he did nearly 90 minutes in the car praying for the track to dry out enough to change to slicks. It didn't quite work out. This time around, it may well be that he's forced to pit a bit earlier just to get out of this battle.
Look, I think Rob's lost some time in traffic and given Lewis an incentive. This is tough fighting, this early in the race. Lewis is incentivized, he is. He can smell that place. As I say, Rob clearly lost time in traffic somewhere, a lot of time. Lewis was nowhere near this close a few laps back.
No, Collard lost half a second to Proctor on the previous lap. Sam Zahan is in to hand over to Patrick Kujala, so never quite got himself into the top 5 before the pit stop, but still a really, really good recovery drive. I'm hoping we'll be able to speak to Sam once he's had a chance to have a drink of water and cool off after that very eventful first 45 minutes of racing. The fight for second place, though, rages on. They've negotiated a little bit of traffic. They're heading back towards the Grand Prix loop again. And at what point do Optimum maybe consider pitting Lewis Proctor here just to get him out of this battle? Because it's clearly costing him time now.
Yeah, but you know what Lewis doesn't want to hear? He doesn't want to hear pit. He wants to overtake. He's going for the inside. Has he got room? Oh, how did he miss him? Look, interesting to watch Rob. Rob's driving the car far straighter. So if you imagine that, if you draw a compass, Lewis has the car far more of a circular, wider arc into the corner, whereas Rob's squaring the corner off and getting it straight on the exits. So yeah, we've just seen the 2C's car of Fender pit. So I think we can probably assume that we'll see Whitin very soon as well.
Marco Mappelli is back out now in the 18 Lamborghini, making his first appearance in the championship, partnering Michael Igo in the number 18 Lamborghini. The factory driver is Marco Mappelli, very quick racer. He has raced here at Donington, I believe, but quite a long time ago, as it is a very expensive McLaren car park down in the pit lane. The 57 HHC car is in, the number 9 2C's Motorsport car is in. Tyre changes every time as well here, of course, so they should always have relatively fresh rubber on, although it won't necessarily be a sticker pair of tyres, will it, every time?
No, you don't have enough tyres over the course of the weekend to have new ones every time. They'll be using their qualifying tyres. Both drivers get a new set of quali tyres, so they'll be using one each. They'll be have kept, if they've been intelligent, they'll have kept a tyre over one more set they didn't use in testing. You never know. That's the beautiful thing about GT racing. You don't know what the other guy's got. You don't. And so if they've kept a set of tyres, a new set of tyres is worth 1-2 seconds a lap.
Yeah, it really is. Into the pit lane goes James Baldwin then. So James Baldwin, the race leader, is in. And this is crucial because we need to watch for Phil Keane now, don't we? We reckon Phil Keane is going to come out with the race lead here once everybody has stopped. So James Baldwin will hand over to Michael O'Brien. The minimum pit stop time, remember, should be longer than the gap was between the McLaren and the Lamborghini. That sat at a little over a minute, I think it was last time we checked. Rob Collard for now takes over the race lead in the Lamborghini, and the Optimum McLaren of Lewis Proctor goes second. Jordan Wick goes third, but Angus Fender is in the pit lane, as we said. So it's about a 50-50 split at the moment as far as those that have pitted and those that have not.
Yeah, I'm interested to watch GT4, but unfortunately we haven't got it on screen at the moment. But Cowley's doing a fantastic job. He really is. He's dominating, isn't he? His pace is fantastic. 2 seconds a lap quicker than anyone last time. What's their success penalty? 20 seconds at the pit stop in the third hour? I wonder if they could back-to-back wins. Well, we see Michael O'Brien, sorry there, to interrupt. Michael O'Brien getting into the car now. Michael, as I said, was my teammate last year. He's tiny. Absolutely tiny. No, really. He's about, sorry, Michael, but he's only about 5'5". And getting in and out of the car for him, when I shared a car with him last year, he had to have a seat insert that was enormous. It's almost like we had to put a pram in for him.
Well, this is Phil Keane then, down into the old hairpin. This car, remember, has already stopped. They pitted at the end of lap 1, a completely planned pit stop. They pitted because the safety car was out. They wanted to get their pro in now. This looks as though it's going to pay off because this car, when it leaves the pit lane, we think is going to come out behind, although there's still about half a lap before Phil Keane gets back to the start-finish line, I think. And when he does, I think he's already gone through, hasn't he? Yes, so he's already gone ahead of the number 2 McLaren. Now, this looks like it was a no-brainer, but at some point they will have to pay their dues, won't they? They're going to have to stick Ballon in now for what would have been the rest of that stint. So is it short-term gain for long-term pain, or do you think this is a race-winning strategy?
It's hard to say, isn't it? But that was very harsh on Adam there. But I know the point you're making. You know who else knows the point you're making? Adam knows the point you're making. And what's really unusual about these 3-hour races is you can find yourself up against drivers you aren't normally against, because the AMs are out on track at the same time as a pro. And as I said earlier, people are on different tyres. And so you really won't know how this thing's going to play out until later on. It's almost impossible. And you imagine you're the engineer on the pit wall trying to sort this out. I mean, for example, Sam Dehan, his team, who we're watching now, they didn't factor in a spin on the first corner of the first lap. They'll be trying to work out what to do. They've done an early pit stop for Patrick. We know how quick he is. I still think they're a factor.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. I think so. They've got the pace, haven't they? And as we made the point, they don't have a success penalty when we get to that final pit stop. So there is Rob Collard then, your race leader, yet to pit. and does not make friends with the apex there down at the Melbourne Hairpin. And now they've got Marco Mappelli, the pro driver, back into the 18 WPR Motorsport Lamborghini. He's quicker than these two, and he wants to get one of his laps back, and he sees this as an opportunity maybe to try and get back into the contention as well. Mia Fluid is in to hand over the Pro-Am Balf Motorsport McLaren GT4 to Ewan Hankey. I noticed that Balf have kept both of their GT4 cars out a little bit longer than maybe I expected, with Jan Klingelberg staying out in the 22 example as well, before handing over to Warren Hughes. And yeah, now Lewis Proctor is starting to become a bit distracted, I think, by what Marco Mappelli's doing behind him. Marco is a pro driver. He's on fresh tyres. He's fresh in the car as well. He is going to be quicker than Lewis. Is it even worth Lewis defending from a car that's laps behind?
Lewis, let him go. Let him go. You were all over the back of the race leader, and now you're worrying about Lewis' position. It's all, again, about making sure that you focus on the overall distance, not on the now, not in the moment. This is not a sprint race. I don't know if you've spotted this. Have you seen the lead that Keane has over Michael O'Brien? They've both stopped once. Correct me if I'm wrong, but is that a 20-second lead?
It is, which is about what we thought it would be, isn't it? So Tom Hornsby, who fed us that information, I must stress, got the calculations absolutely right. So Phil Keane, once everybody else pits, should have the race lead, but that is, as we've said, because they've had the pro driver in for not even a little bit longer, significantly longer than a lot of the other Pro-Am cars out there. So we'll see how this plays out. Mappelli still hasn't been able to unlap himself, as there you can see the
contact.
Oh dear, yeah, Mappelli into the back of Proctor. This is what you were saying. This is not a fight that either of these drivers need to be having, but Mappelli has nothing to lose. He's laps behind, and his only way of getting this car back into contention is to be aggressive, and aggressive he is as he dives around the outside of Lewis Proctor. That was a hell of a move, but that was a risk that Lewis did not need to be taking.
Yeah, I mean, look, the team's job in that case is to get on the radio and tell him not to fight. It's not a race that he's in. They're miles ahead of him. 2 laps, as you say, Andy. That was needless, and again, it cost time. Look how far behind Lewis is now from Rob.
Yeah, the gap was 1.2 seconds at the start of the lap. It will be significantly more now, but now they're both getting backed up behind one of the TF Sport Aston Martins, 97 that is, I think, which is being driven by Jamie Caroline, having made its first pit stop. Dan Vaughan has handed over to the 97 car that is second in the GT4 Championship, and only half a point behind Gus Bowers and Chris Westmail's 57 HHC McLaren, which they are ahead of by quite a bit at the moment. So as things stand in GT4, it looks like Aston Martin and TF Sport are going to take themselves back to the top of the points table. Now, Rob Collard has the WPR Motorsport car bearing down on it. Same story for Rob, really. No need to make this any harder than it needs to be.
Yeah, quite. I mean, you can see right now on screen in front of you what happens if you get in a fight that you don't need to get into. Lewis was lucky not to get taken out there. I don't think that the Lamborghini did anything wrong there. He put it in there, and it probably rightly expected the other guy to get out of the way.
Where has Rob Collard gone? Has he pitted, or I think he's just to our right? We're on board with Marco Mappelli now. And Rob Collard...
That's how you do it.
Years of wisdom and experience. He knows when to pick a fight, and he knows when to step away. Pull to the right-hand side, wade Marco Mappelli through, minimal time loss.
Yeah, what do you think we lost there? Maybe a couple of attempts.
Yeah.
That's exactly how you do it. I said earlier, it's incredible how well Rob has gone into this series. I mean, a sprint racer his whole life, and now he's done this. And look, he's still quick. He's still quick. His tyres aren't as good as they were before.
Yeah, this number 18 car is quick. Rob Collard is equally as quick at the moment, it seems, but Marco Mappelli is overtaking lots of cars, gaining track position, but sadly still finds himself 15th overall and 3 laps down on the race leaders, now 2, because he's just unlapped himself from Rob Collard. But that could all prove to be crucial if they can catch some safety cars at the right time, if they can use the strategy to put themselves back in contention. This is why the teams love this more open strategy that we have in the 3-hour races. If this was a traditional 2-hour race with you pit bang on halfway through, you give each driver 50% of the race, there's no real way back from this. But here they have some strategic freedom.
They do have strategic freedom, but honestly, there isn't a calculator in the world that can work this out. you need a crystal ball to work it out. And if we get a safety car right now, everyone that's already stopped will be absolutely kicking themselves. And we could see the likes of Keane, who's currently got an enormous lead. Well, actually, a safety car is kind of what they want right now, isn't it? But if we take, for example, Michael O'Brien, a safety car would just destroy their race. And all you can do is look at the track, see how many cars are close to each other, and you are almost trying to predict the future.
Yeah, exactly. They are praying, all of the teams out there, either for a safety car or not to have a safety car. We saw the Academy Mustang in, by the way, Matt Cowley giving up the GT4 race lead to Jan Klingelberg, who will take over now in his first race in the championship, and that car that he will hand over to former BTCC race winner and former GT4 champion Warren Hughes at the first pit stop. That car now takes over the class lead as a result of some others taking pit stops. And don't forget that being a Pro-Am car, the same as the other Balf car of Mir Furt and Ewan Hankey, they don't have to serve the Silver Cup penalty in each pit stop. Every time a GT4 Silver car, which is anyone other than those two McLarens and the 33 BMW, every time one of those cars pits, they have to spend an extra 14 seconds in. That's at every stop, not just the final one.
Yeah, sorry there, Andy, to interrupt you. Michael just clipped the tyre barrier and he's taken something off the front of the car. I couldn't help but notice, I was watching him as you were talking, and he's losing time to McDonald in the 2Cs car behind him already. I'd love to see the front of that car right now. He just took a big chunk of carbon fibre off it.
Was it carbon fibre, or could it have been? There's a wrap around that little tyre stack that sometimes comes loose. It could have been either. It could have been both, I suppose.
I've never hit it. I'm very careful.
Of course. It goes without saying, Graham. Let's see if we can get a good look at the front of that car. There you can see a little bit of damage on the rear left of the Collard Lamborghini. I mean, that's not going to be enough to affect it, I'm sure.
No, not at all. He won't even be aware of it.
No.
I'll tell you who is aware of it. Michael knows he hit that tyre barrier.
Yes.
He does. 100% he'd have felt that. He could have knocked the steering out. It'd be interesting to see on board to see if his steering wheel is still straight. If it isn't, they've got to carry that with them for the next 2 hours.
Yeah.
But no, a bit of a rare mistake there from Michael, but I can't see any damage actually. I think you're right, it probably was actually something off the tyre barrier. The winglets are still on the car, but even so, McDonald behind him is charging. He was 8/10 of a second faster.
Yeah, that gap is going to keep on coming down, I think, isn't it, at the moment as well? 18.9 seconds at the moment. Here's the replay. Oh, it's already loose, and he just collects it, so it's in the middle of the road, won't do any damage, but that will have caught his attention.
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, whenever there's debris in the road that you don't expect, you got to remember, you sit very low in these cars. You can't see the bonnet, you can't see anything. He would have heard an enormous whack, got straight on the radio and say, what on earth was that? And he'll be feeling things. He's not. Yeah. He'll be hearing things and feeling things. And tell someone, hopefully, reassures him it was just a bit of a tyre barrier.
Yeah, and that's an important job, actually, if you're on the radio to the driver. And this is sometimes where the other driver will be in constant radio communication with the driver in the car. And that's they almost have to be a cheerleader, don't they, to the driver that's out on track, and just keep managing their state of mind throughout the stint. So, track limits for car 2. So Michael O'Brien is losing time and exceeding track limits whilst doing it. That's not really a great combination, is it? That car there being warned for track limits, not a penalty yet, but that will keep on adding up throughout the rest of this stint now. The number 2 car has come out of the pit lane in 7th place overall. It is the second placed car that has stopped. And it is a long way behind Phil Keane in the Lamborghini. It's going to be a huge margin that the number 72 car has once the pit stops have been completed.
Yeah, so once they're completed, we've got Phil Keane in the lead, but he must surely be stopping very soon. Yeah. The fuel tank can't last forever. He must be due to stop in the next 10 minutes or so, because the car barely did a lap. And so he's going to fall right down the order. This is what we were saying about stick with this race. There's so much action to come. They need to minimise how long Ballon is in the car, but Adam's got to do 1 hour and 20 minutes. Will the fuel tank last 1 hour and 20 minutes?
Well, yeah, that is going to be an interesting question over the next hour or so that will follow. Meanwhile, Patrick Ayala now is behind Dean McDonald. So both of these two have pitted. This is the battle that was going on with their co-drivers before the pit stop started. Angus Fender was in the number 9 car, Sam Dahan was in the 69. The two cars are still locked in combat, still fighting for position, but with different drivers now behind the wheel, and therefore another different dynamic between these two cars as they head towards the final corner. Just behind them, by the way, you can see the 95 TF Sport Aston Martin. Remember, both of those cars pitted early, and it looks as though that's going to work out for them. They are going to come out with the lead and second place in GT4. They're on the Phil Keane Barwell Motorsport strategy, aren't they? So they're essentially a pit stop ahead of everybody. but that means that they will have to bring those cars in fairly shortly. That is the 95 car that leads the class with Patrick Kibble. Jamie Caroline is 9.9 seconds behind his teammate. Good news as far as Tom Ferry is concerned. There's nearly 10 seconds of clean air between these two.
Why, what do you mean, Andy?
Well, you see, if you cast your mind back to Brands Hatch last time out, they got a bit closer than 9 seconds, didn't they? They were racing for podium places, those two cars, in the final few laps. Contact was made. Kibble ended up in the gravel trap. Jamie Caroline ended up having to defend himself in the post-race interviews, and I'm sure, all joking aside, that Tom Ferrier will be quite grateful that they're not wheel-to-wheel right now.
Yeah, it's unusual. What you want to do, you want your car to come first and you want them to come second. But you're absolutely right. I spoke to Tom, and I gather it was a little frosty in the truck. I don't think there's a great deal of love there. And hopefully, look, they can patch it up, because what matters is the team, and what matters is winning for the team, for yourselves, for your co-driver. I think Jamie's done a terrific job this year. When we were here a month ago, he tore off into the distance. I don't think he's had the luck that he deserves. And okay, yes, there was a mistake made. There was a hot-headed mistake made against his teammate in the last race. But look what I'm doing to the poor guy. I thought he'd hit too much curb there, and I've given him the commentator's curse. And he's launched the car off the curb. Those curbs earlier, we were watching a Ginetta race and it took the bonnet off. So if we watch the replay and see what happens, look how much curb he takes. Car pings off it. See the front of the car bouncing, and that's chucked the car off. I don't think he'd have lost that much time there. He would have probably lost a little bit of one of his lives. But yeah, it just shows you he knows the other guy's ahead of him and he wants to catch him. There, he's Needle.
He lost about 2 seconds that time nearly to Patrick Kibble. So whether that was all from that moment, of course he'll have dirt on the tyres now as well. True. They're hot and sticky at this stage, deep into the stint. You will learn the more commentary you do, Graham. Never say anything nice about any driver because instantly something will go wrong. This car, though, I'm going to say something nice about this car because they're doing well, Academy Motorsport. They're the highest placed car, well, not the highest placed car that has pitted, but once the TF Aston's pit, they will re-inherit the race lead, and therefore the McLaren not far behind them will be once again in competition with them for the class lead. That is the number 58 car now with Jordan Collards. We have both the Collards out on track together at the moment. The Academy Mustang is quicker at the moment than the Aston Martin's fresher tyres.
That's
is that
pure
what's doing that?
Tyres. That's all, well. That's it. We did actually just watch Jamie drive across the grass and do a bit of and destroy Jonathan Palmer's life. But but no, I mean that is a loss to us. Oh, stop and go penalty for number 6. Who have we got there, Andy? That's Berman. They are having an absolutely dreadful day. You had the commentator's curse there. You said they were going to win.
Why did I say that about Ram Racing? I will not be welcome at their garage after the race, will I? So the number 6 car that is currently running in 11th place. Too short a pit stop. Now, what we haven't been told is how short it was. The rule is if you are, for example, a second short, a second underneath the minimum pit stop time, they bring you in, they stop you for a second, and then you go. But of course, the time loss is a lot more than a second because you have to slow down to pit lane speed limit, trudge all the way down to the penalty box, stop, start, get back out again. So the total time loss is closer to 20 seconds or so. Will this put them a lap down? It might do because Rob Collard and Lewis Proctor still stubbornly have not come into the pit lane, and we're now past the 1 hour mark, so they're going for a third strategy that we hadn't even considered, which is that you go way deep into the race before you make your first pit stop. They have the luxury of doing that though because they are Silver Cup cars. They have two reasonably equal drivers in both of those cars, and that does afford you a bit more freedom.
Yeah, it does. The silver cars are almost in a different race. They are, because the cars are lapping at the same pace. Then again, as I've said before, people like Ballon, people like Loggy can, on their day, have the same pace. And look, I'll tell you what's an interesting race shaping up here. Here comes Jordan Albert. Jordan used to be a McLaren driver development program driver, and behind him is Jordan Collard, an old colleague.
As Lewis Proctor pits 2 seconds behind the race lead he was when he came in, and this is again right on cue really, because we were just saying that this was quite a long stint. But yeah, that will be interesting. Matt Cowley will have even more incentive to keep that McLaren behind it once they do get themselves together. Phil Keane goes through to officially move ahead of the Optimum McLaren. Now, where will this car come out in relation to Michael O'Brien? I suspect it might be ahead of the number 2 car, despite the fact that it was behind it when the pit stop sequence started. Number 33 is in, that's David Whitmore to hand over to Luke Sedgwickowski, and Ian Yelmer Berman, is in to serve the stop-go penalty. I'm being told by Tom Hornsby that it was less than a second underneath the minimum pit stop time. As here, whoa, that was
That's breaking down, surely.
Yeah, there's a problem there, isn't there, for
Yeah.
number 9 car? So that is, it hasn't made the pit lane yet, though, interestingly. So number 9 is Dean McDonald, lost 2 places on the previous lap, one of which we saw was to Patrick Kuyala, the other one to Senan Fielding.
It's almost like he lost a gear or something, which is very unusual in these cars. These are paddle shift. But look, we'll see the Optimum pit stop, very leisurely, but they have the time, and you need to be leisurely here. We got Wilkinson taking over here. He qualified a second faster, as I said earlier, than Proctor. He's very, very talented driver, and again, they're both fighting for a factory drive. Who's this we've got in here? Is this Collard
I
finally?
think it is. Yes, it is. So 78 is in. So this will complete the first round of pit stops. And as he pulls in, the Optimum car goes out. And I'm guessing that Phil Keane and Michael O'Brien have both gone through. Yes, they have. So the Optimum car is going to come out in 3rd position, I believe, as Joe Osborne goes through. He's snuck into the number 36 McLaren. And yeah, Optimum come out just in front of Patrick Kuyala. So this is going to be for about 3rd, 4th and 5th places once you throw the 78 car back into the hunt. So 96 now being driven then in this second stint of the race by Ollie Wilkinson. 69 is Patrick Kuyala. You've got Senan Fielding in the Audi behind them, having a really good run as well, flying under the radar a bit, but that Audi looks quick. And in another lap's time, this car will also be in that battle, and then we'll have a true picture of what the order is going to look like behind Phil Keane and Michael O'Brien.
Yeah, let's try and unravel it. So we know that Keane's got to stop very soon.
Yeah.
So we must therefore be saying that the leader in a few minutes is going to be Michael O'Brien. Then we're going to be saying that the second place car is probably Wilkinson.
Yes.
Because we haven't got a pit stop penalty yet.
Not yet. It will be
When does that
Wilkinson
happen?
or Mitchell. That comes at the last pit stop. So, yeah, it will be one of those two, and we'll find out in about half a lap. Before we do so, though, let's head down to 2C's Motorsport. Bryn has some news from the 2C's pit.
Yeah, I certainly do. A car that had real problems yesterday in FP1, FP2 and quali as well, but I've got Jordan here. That was a pretty good first stint, particularly on the first corner.
Yeah, it was good. You know, I think I just wanted to get the jump on everybody. I had the turbos pretty smooth, and then those 2 big gaps to go through, so I just drove through the middle. And yeah, we just seemed to cement in that place for the stint. We did what we wanted to do. We ran it along, and yeah, we qualified really good.
Yeah, now with the problems yesterday, any sign of it reoccurring, or is it running smoothly?
No, I think yesterday's problem was just one of those things that happens in motorsport. There's nothing we could do, so you know we fixed everything. But today, yeah, it seems to be perfect at the minute.
And so what's Jack's ambition? What's he going to try and do out on track? Presumably gain some places ready for you.
Well, yeah, you know, Jack's fast, so yeah, I think he'll be out there working as hard as I did. Both of us together are pretty fast as a team, so yeah, I think we'll do pretty well.
Yeah, do you know when you're going back in? What's your break now?
Well, not too sure really, to be honest with you. I think I'll just be floating around the garage waiting.
Good stuff, well, enjoy it, right? Thank you very much there, Jordan Witt.
Right then, Sandy Mitchell is back out in the 78 Lamborghini, and he has got out in front of the Optimum McLaren. So the order now then, at the end of this lap, Phil Keane will lead the way from Michael O'Brien in second position. I'll give you the gap when O'Brien completes this, his 44th lap of the race. We are into the second hour of the race as well, so before Phil Keane comes in and starts the second round of pit stops again, I will give you the full order if I can, but then this will become the fight for third between Sandy Mitchell, Ollie Wilkinson, Patrick Kuyala and Senan Fielding, and not that far back is Jack Mitchell in the first of the 2C's McLarens. Phil Keane is a minute ahead of Michael O'Brien. Now the minimum, he will lose that lead, but not by a huge amount.
Yeah.
Phil Keane is really bringing that 72 car right back into play here, but of course in the next stint we anticipate it might start to lose a little bit of time. He's a second quicker than Michael O'Brien last time around, so the lead gap is a minute. O'Brien is 18.5 seconds ahead of Sandy Mitchell in third. He is 1.4 seconds ahead of Patrick Kuyala. You can see the battle on screen there, third and fourth places. Kuyala is 2.5 seconds ahead of Senan Fielding in the Audi. He sits in sixth position at the moment. Third and fourth, excuse me, then in front of us. Then we've got Jack Mitchell in seventh place, eighth for Dean McDonald, ninth Sam Neary, 10th Yelmer Berman, and 11th Scott Malton. But only actually the top 8 cars are on the lead lap at the moment, because several others, of course, have run into difficulties. Also, the fact that Phil Keane is a minute up the road from anyone else means that he's put quite a lot of cars one lap down. They will be desperately waiting to see that green and black Lamborghini heading to the pit, because then they can get themselves at least temporarily back on the lead lap. In GT4, Patrick Kibble leads the way for TF Sport in the 95 Aston Martin. Jamie Caroline is about to come across the start-finish line now, and he is now over 10 seconds behind in second place. Jordan Albert is 5 seconds behind him in third. And fourth position in GT4, Jordan Collard. Fifth, Sam Spelton, Toyota. And sixth, the championship leader, Chris Westmail, in the HHC McLaren. So Phil Keane leading the way. When does he pit? That's the next question.
Well, look at his pace. He doesn't need to pit. He's lapping 28.2. He was 1.4 seconds faster than the second place driver, Michael O'Brien. On that basis, that gives Adam Ballon, his teammate, a much easier ride. He's going for another lap. They've obviously got an enormous fuel tank in there. They must have reserve tanks. And that means that Adam, if he can lap within 1.4 seconds of his teammate, which is possible, why not? Adam's a talented guy. All of a sudden, the pressure's less on him. Phil's making this job a lot easier for him. He is.
There are two things that will force that car into the pit lane. One is fuel, as you say, and eventually it is going to run out. The other is this maximum driver time.
Yeah, okay.
No driver can do more than 100 minutes, and you have to do it over 2 stints. You can't do it all in one. So he's already on 65 minutes or so now, at least. So his second stint will be a lot shorter, but it does have to be a second stint. He can't just do the full 100 minutes in one go, even if the fuel tank will allow. So Phil will have to pit shortly, but when, we will find out when it happens, I suppose. Michael O'Brien here in second position, 18 seconds ahead of Sandy Mitchell now in third place, and Sandy Mitchell is a further 1.6 seconds ahead of Wilkinson and Kujala. There you can see them. Now, are Wilkinson and Kujala catching him? No, not on the previous lap. Mitchell was getting away, so the Lamborghini, having got out in front of them, that was crucial because it's got the pace to gap them. If it had come back out behind the McLaren, that completely messes up this next stint for Sandy.
Absolutely, but I tell you what I'm watching. I'm watching Michael O'Brien's lap pace. He's not happy in that car. He's not lapping that fast against the other McLarens. So let's look at the other McLaren pace. Well, Jack Mitchell's lapping in either the high 28s or low 29s, whereas Michael's in the high 29s to the 30s. There's something in that car that isn't really to Michael's satisfaction. I know him, and I'm wondering if maybe there was a little bit of something that came from hitting that tyre barrier, or not the tyre barrier, hitting the sign, where something's thrown out of line or something. Michael's quicker than this. There's a story behind this, but perhaps we could find out in the pit lane.
Yeah, well, I'd like to hear from James Baldwin anyway, so maybe we can send Bryn on his way. Barwell, meanwhile, are preparing for a pit stop, so this tells me that Phil Keane may be in. And look, TF have just been in, and we know they're on the same strategy. So that was the 97 car. Jamie Caroline is going to hand back over to Dan Vaughan, and in fact just has. So this car, I think, may be in on this next lap. This will hand the lead back over to Michael O'Brien, but yeah, you're right, he's been caught by Sandy Mitchell as well. Mitchell over a second and a half quicker than him at the moment, so it may be that there is a slight problem for the number 2 car, Michael O'Brien. No problems at all for this car though. 12 months ago, this was the date and the venue that the championship rather slipped away from Barwell, as so often it has at Donington Park. Sadly, their Donington curse has struck year on year on year, and it was contact with about Mark, wasn't it, here 12 months ago that took this particular car out of contention. Phil Keane on that occasion only got a lap or so in his stint before the rear suspension broke after earlier contact. He is in the pit lane now, though. He's done significantly more time in the car this time around. He brings the car in over a minute clear of Michael O'Brien in second place. They will lose the lead here, but this is their second pit stop of the day. They have to make at least 3. They have to make at least 3 driver changes as well. So this next stint for Adam Ballon will be maybe the stint that wins or loses the race for them. It will all depend now on how much time Ballon loses compared to the other cars out there around him. His saving grace, actually, is that the next 7 cars are all silver cars, not Pro-Am cars. So the next actual pro driver that's going to take a big chunk of time out of him is Sam Neary, all the way down in 9th place, nearly a lap back. So he would rather be out there in competition with the silvers, I'd imagine, than the outright pros in the Pro-Am cars.
Yeah, you're right. And actually, Sam's good, but he's learning. He's out there doing the dream. He's racing with his dad. And I think Adam will probably have the measure of him. That stint from Phil Keane was extraordinary. He's operating on a different level. Since he got out-qualified by that young whippersnapper in the same car in Barwell by Sandy Mitchell at Brands Hatch, when he got out-qualified by him, Phil Keane is a factory driver.
Yeah.
And so that stint was extraordinary. So far, Phil King's best lap is 1 second faster than Sandy Mitchell's best lap in the same car, with the same fuel load and the same tyres.
A point that I'm sure he'll be keen to mention when he gets back into the garage after this stint. So back into the lead then goes the number 2 Jensen Team Rocket RJN car. Michael O'Brien takes over first position now as a result of this second pit stop for the 72 car. Sandy Mitchell goes second, Ollie Wilkinson goes third, Patrick Ujala goes fourth. And all of a sudden, we go from having the top 2 cars separated by a minute to having the top 2 cars separated by less than 15 seconds, and the next 4 cars separated by about 5 seconds. It's very, very close now at the front of the field. He gets out of the pit lane then, does Adam Ballon, and he is going to have dropped, I think, down to 8th position potentially. It'll all update itself at the end of the next lap. This now then becomes the fight for third place. Patrick Ujala still hasn't got past Ollie Wilkinson. Now they're silver drivers, both of these, but I would argue that Patrick Ujala, you would imagine, would be a little bit quicker. He's certainly one of the quicker silver drivers in the championship. Just can't break past that McLaren.
Yeah, well, there's another driver that's operating on a different level this weekend, and that is Ollie Wilkinson. And I know he gave himself a really hard time after Brands Hatch. They weren't where they wanted to be, and he's doing a superb job here. He lost his head a little bit at the first round in Autumn Park, and here he is against someone of the calibre of Patrick in a factory car, and yet he's actually holding his own. His lap speed, very, very good. What is he? He's only 2-3 tenths a lap slower. If he looks forward all the time, I think he'll put a holding behind him without losing too much time.
Yeah, well, let's see then. Across the line they go. Kujala up into 4th place, as we said. Ballon, I think, will drop down to 8th here. I think he came out behind Dean McDonald after his pit stop. Wait for the timing screen to update itself. Yes, Dean McDonald comes through 7th. Ballon should be next in 8th position. And this scrap then for 3rd place between the McLaren from Optimum Motorsport and the Mercedes from Ram Racing continues. Hard to believe that this number 69 car was pointing the wrong way an hour and a quarter ago, coming out of the first corner. And Sandahan and Patrick Ujala have done a good job to wrestle it back up the order. The safety car helped them, though, obviously, massively to make sure that it kind of regained a lot of the time that it lost from that spin that it had. So Sandy Mitchell then in the black number 78 Lamborghini, who is running in 2nd position. Now, this car was one of the last cars to pit to make its first stop. Rob Collard, a bit like he did here a month ago, just didn't want to get out of the car at the end of his stint, and he is down there now with Bryn in the pits.
Not sure about that. I think he's very warm. Rob, that was a really long first stint.
Yeah, absolutely. We got going, and I thought this must be coming up to an hour now, and then they said another 20 laps, and then you'll be pitting. And I thought, oh my God, I've got to do a bit more work in the gym possibly over the next couple of weeks, because these long endurance things definitely take it out of you.
Well, it's very tricky, the 3-hour race. We saw you collect a bit of the wrap that goes around the tyres there. What was that like from your point of view?
Yeah, they said there was debris in the chicane, and as I came in, there was nothing I could do. I think I avoided some of it, but I saw it was a big bit sort of collected the side of the car. I could feel it, or I hit the car, but yeah, it's just you just got to drive with it and just hope you don't get a puncture.
We were wondering, from your point of view in the car, do you have to rely on the team to tell you there's no damage to the car? Does it play on your mind?
No, I've driven cars long enough. You can normally tell. You got a feeling. You feel the vibrations through the steering wheel, or through the seat. So there's nothing sort of. I don't think it's a big enough hit or to do any damage to the car. We just carried on doing the same lap time. So I just sort of tried to stay in a rhythm there and set a certain lap time. I was also very conscious. I had Proctor behind me, and he was very good in the last sector into the hairpin on the brake. So I just had to make sure that I knew where he was strong and where I was strong, and just protect the gap where. A couple of times you had to look down the outside into the chicane, but there was nowhere around the outside with me.
No, absolutely. And also, right, for you, a long time in the car, go and sit down, have a nice rest, all right?
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Rob. Cheers, Rob. Thank you.
Yeah, bring one my way, Rob, if you find one. So we didn't actually see Rob hit that wrap at the chicane, but obviously it was sat in the middle of the road, and then all of a sudden it wasn't. So I imagine maybe Rob Collard did the marshal's job for them and cleared it out of the way, but no damage done. That car is on on a mission. It is quicker than the race leader, lap on lap. Only, as soon as I say that, it was slower than Michael O'Brien, but that is the first lap this stint that Sandy Mitchell has lost time to Michael O'Brien, and the lead gap is now down to just 13.5 seconds.
Yeah, I've discovered I've got a new power in this commentary stuff. I need to talk about people that have annoyed me in the past in racing, and I can get them to have a disaster. Anyway, look, this battle continues to rage. I think that Wilkinson's doing a superb job of staying ahead there, and he turned it in really early there, and the car's behaving well.
Yeah, now on the left-hand side of the screen you can see Patrick Kibble's name in red. That's because he is in the pit lane, so it's a handy way of us knowing who is pitting when. And Patrick is in because he's on this alternate strategy that his teammate was on as well. Although they brought this car in a few laps later than the 97, which is interesting. So it's only one with the pit lane at the same time, and they're doing everything they can to keep them apart. But that graphic will go back to a black background again once he is pitted. You can see him dropping down the order now. His teammate Dan Vaughan is about 7th place, I think, in GT4. So this car should fall back somewhere around there. I forget now whether 95 was ahead of 97. I think it was, wasn't it? And it will continue to be because, as you can see, you can't see the 97 car yet on the start-finish straight. What you can see, though, is the race-leading car, Michael O'Brien. The Jensen Team Rocket RJN squad are looking good here for, well, maybe their second victory of the year. They took that win at Alton Park at the start of the season and are very much in championship contention. They're on 68 points, which means they are 22.5 points behind the championship leading 78 car. Thinking championship, and we have to now. There are only 4 races to go in the championship. We're into the second half of the season now. They will be happy that they're leading. They'll be less happy that the 78 car is having a really good day as well, because if 78 can hang on to second place, that seriously minimises the damage done. And although the number 2 car is third in the points, 22.5 points is a decent cushion, isn't it?
It is a decent cushion, but you mustn't. To win a championship, you can become obsessed with it. Well, you have to focus on race result, and I think sometimes you can be too hungry. And I speak of experience now. I've thrown away many a race win and other success by wanting it too much. The first thing you need to do is enjoy racing. And I know that Michael, if you look at his lap time, all of a sudden, he's got his pace up. Michael's now focused, so whatever was niggling him before, Michael's pace is on a par, if not quicker than any of the other McLarens on track right now. And it's all about this mind game stuff, staying strong, making sure you focus. Don't worry about the championship, worry about the race win. And what happened to them last time? A Land Rover cost them a win. Do you want to explain that?
I'd rather not go into too much detail, but there was a slight issue in the pit lane at Brands Hatch last time, which did rather delay them coming out of the pit lane. They pitted in the race lead, and they came out in second, annoyingly behind the 78 Lamborghini that went on, of course, to take the win and take the championship lead. So, yeah, sometimes you really can't predict the hurdles you may have to jump in racing. Now that is Kujala in, presumably to hand back over to Sam Dahan. Wait for the timing screen in our booth to confirm that. When he goes past the pit exit, the transponder should change. If it doesn't, then that was a problem. If it does, it might still have been a problem because we didn't expect them in yet.
I think they're trying to get Sam in to get his minimum drive out the way. In theory, he'll have to stop in about, 20 minutes and he'll be done, won't he? Which means that, is it about that 20 minutes, half hour? He'll have done his minimum distance.
Yes, except Sam isn't in the car. Kujala stayed in the car, according to our timing screen. Our timing screen is saying it's still Patrick Kujala, so I'm afraid that's completely thrown me. There must have been a problem of some sort, but the car was on rails. It was one of the fastest cars on the track. There was no obvious problem. It wasn't a penalty either, because he served it in his pit box, not the penalty box.
Yep.
Answers on a postcard, everyone. I have absolutely no idea what Ram Racing have brought that car in for. I'm sure Bryn is already sprinting his way down to that end of the pit lane to find out for us. It could be that they haven't flipped the transponder over. I'm trying to peer into the cockpit, but I have to say I haven't memorised everybody's helmet colours so far this year. So if it is Patrick Kujala, that is strange, because you have to make minimum of 3 pit stops, but that's the same number of driver changes you make. There is no sense at all in pitting without changing the driver, surely.
I think that's Sam's lid. Who have we got stopping here?
This is Sandy, isn't it, as well? So this is a short middle stint that they're Yeah, this is Sandy getting
How long
out.
has he been in the car for?
A very short amount of time. So okay, so we thought we'd see some weird and wacky strategies, but this is not. We thought this was the period of the race where things might settle out. They would do a full stint, but no, they are getting Sandy Mitchell back out of the car and Rob Collard back in. So Rob hasn't had his cup of tea, or if he has, he's downed it very quickly, and he's had to get straight back behind the wheel of the 78 car. This is a completely normal pit stop. There's no problem, there's no damage. It's a driver change, tyre change, refuel, and send him back on his way. I did not see this coming, Graham.
No, poker face from Rob as well.
Yes.
Just got interviewed a moment ago, says he's going to sit and have a relax, and now he's back in the car. I'm surprised he got his helmet on time. Look, I think we're obviously seeing people play. This is all about minimum driver time. They're trying to get Rob's minimum driver time out the way so they can get Sandy back in. That must be what's happening with Sam DeHaan. I wonder if they just haven't flicked over the ID, as you say.
Yes, it's changed
there
now.
We go.
The left-hand side
that makes sense.
Yeah, so it is Sam DeHaan in the car, so thank you for getting that sorted then. On track, meanwhile, this is Jordan Albert, who is closing in on Warren Hughes. Warren Hughes is sadly not racing the Mustang for position. He is a lap behind the number 61 car, which has now retaken the class lead, of course, because the Aston Martins have made their second pit stop. This car still owes us that pit stop. Michael O'Brien is back in as well. So yeah, this is absolutely what they're trying to do is play the strategy game here, get James Baldwin back in. James has been quicker than Michael so far in this race. It makes sense, getting back in. They were hemorrhaging time to the cars behind, and so James Baldwin is back in the car. He's had about half an hour or so to rest up because this car was in quite early in the first proper cycle of pit stops.
Brand new tyres going on there. I'd tell you what we saw. I'd tell you why Michael wasn't quick. They left him on the old tyres. I think that's what's going on.
Right, that's interesting. So 72 go back through then. So Adam Ballon now goes back ahead of the Jensen Team Rocket RJN car. And it's going to be a job now to keep track of all of these different strategies. But I love it. This is proper GT racing, proper endurance racing. Teams not restricted by pit stop windows. They are able to think outside the box. And so Michael O'Brien, well, he's no longer in that car. It will be James Baldwin who has jumped in now. And this is their second pit stop done. So I'm asking you this fully aware that you probably don't know, but now if you're making this early pit stop now, how long do you leave this driver in? You've got to leave them right to the end of this will be the driver that does 100 minutes, surely now. This is the driver you'll leave in.
So Baldwin had done 60 minutes, and so he's allowed to do another 40 minutes.
Yes.
Michael O'Brien did, what, 10, 15 minutes, something like that? I still can't quite work. I should have studied harder at school. I can't understand to save my life. The only thing that does all of a sudden make sense is I'm absolutely certain that Michael was left on an old tyre.
Right.
Because that kid's quick.
Yeah.
I couldn't understand his pace.
So Bentley is in. We believe it came into the pit lane quite
It's on
slowly. They
skids as
put
well,
it on they put it on the dollies, haven't they? So that's going into the garage. This is a shame. The car that won here in August is not going to do so again today. They've been a little off the pace, in fairness. Scott Malvern was in the car and was slowly sort of regaining some ground, but that is one of the worst sights in motor racing, isn't it? Seeing a car being wheeled back into the garage midway through a race with some sort of a problem. So, well, Bryn's going to be a busy boy, isn't he? Because we've got that to chase up. We want to try and get to the bottom of the strategy game that's going on. This is for position now, though. This is Rob Collard versus Sam DeHaan, two silver-graded drivers, remember. The Mercedes has gained here. It was a lot further behind that Lamborghini before the pit stops. This second round of pit stop started.
Yeah, it was. But you know what I'm focusing on? The timing screen. Adam Ballon. He's lapping quickly. 30.4. With the pace of Keane, it might be enough. If he can keep it in the high 29s and low 30s, they will be right up there. So while this battle's going on, Adam Ballon's secretly like a ninja coming through, and actually is probably the best place to win this race.
Yeah, Ballon is in 6th position, but having made 2 pit stops, they are still the highest placed car that has made that second stop. And Yelmer Berman, I believe, has also just got back into the... their second pit stop was a penalty, wasn't it? 61 are in from the lead of GT4. This is also kind of realigning all these strategies, because it wasn't that long ago the TF Sport cars were in, and now only 10 minutes later the Ford Mustang is in as well. So too the championship leading 57 car for HHC Motorsport. Chris Westmail has brought the car in. He will hand back over to his teammate Gus Bowers, and Gus of course started the race for HHC.
I was sorry, Andy, but they had no choice but to stop Jordan Albert in the Mustang, because he was getting held up by Warren Hughes. It wasn't for position, but they were in a fight. I see a little bit of debris coming off the car there, but yet they were in a fight, and he was losing a heap of time. I think that stop's been forced by the fact that he was stuck behind someone. Car 8 and 26 under investigation. So
Yeah.
Sam Neary
and Matt Manderson, that is, in the Ultimate Speed Aston. So we haven't seen that. They are not fighting for position. The number 8 car of Sam Neary is 5th at the moment. Matt Manderson all the way down in 14th and a couple of laps down. So we'll again try to get to the bottom of that one as well. There is Matt Manderson staying well out of the way in the brand new Aston Martin. Very much a glorified test session this for them, really, as they tried to get to grips with that car. And there is Adam Ballon then. He's not leading the race yet, but by the end of his stint, I think he more than likely will be.
Yeah.
Car in front of him is the WPI car being driven still by Marco Mappelli, who is on a more traditional pit strategy, but I suppose their only chance really of getting back into this is to look into a timely safety car. Important though for Mappelli, he's got himself back ahead of Ballon now, so even when Ballon takes over the lead, he will be only 1 lap behind him rather than 2.
Yeah, so we know that Adam's got to get out the car about 2 hours and 20 minutes, something like 2 hours and 20 minutes. It must be by definition. So he'll be in the car for another 50 minutes. He's losing around only a second to half a second a lap.
Yes, no, you're right. His lap times are good, although that one was not so good. He lost a place to Albert Berman.
And that's often the difference between a pro driver and an am. And it's not to do with talent. It's to do that thing I always talk about, seat time.
Yeah.
The bottom line is, he's not in traffic as much as Phil Keane is. He needs to practice more time on the M25.
Yes, he was overtaken by Albert Berman, which is what did it. Berman, the reason I was doing a lap ago, Berman made a real lunge at the inside into Redgate, and I think Ballon had to sidestep out of the way.
Okay.
Now he has got traffic, though. That is the Matt Cowley-driven Academy Mustang right in front of him, which is not jumping out of the way, and nor should it. It's got its own race to run. And, you know, the GT3 drivers always say the worst thing that a GT4 car can do when being lapped is to start pulling aside. The best thing for it to do is stay on the racing line. At least then you know where it's going.
I've always put my indicator on.
Right.
Always. That way I get to decide who does what when I want them to do it. It's genuinely... I once made a mistake back in 2016. I hit a GT3 car. I was in a GT4. I didn't see it. I didn't get notification on there, and I had a big crash. And you learn from that mistake. You always learn from mistakes, and I learned that you need to signal, quite literally, your intent to these drivers. There's no point turning and hoping they don't come down your inside.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to be clear what you're doing. It's when you start weaving out of the way without indicating the way, that then becomes unpredictable.
It sends a confusing message.
Exactly, yeah, you've got to be clear, and so many accidents, be it on a racetrack or on a public road, are simply miscommunications, people just not realising what the other is doing. So anyway, into the pit lane, you can see on the left hand side of the screen is Jordan Collard as well, so he just brought the 58 HHC McLaren in. There it is, right on cue, and that is a driver change going on. We'll see a replay of an incident, I believe, out on track. This might well be the so this is Berman going past Ballon, and like I said, I was doing an R-ing about this.
Yeah.
Oh, it was close. We can't see if there was contact.
There's a bit of carbon fibre flicked up. Remember what I said about the carbon fibre? That's come off Berman's car then.
That's interesting. So there may well have been a bit of paint trading between the two of them, but Race Control, I believe, are investigating that. So we'll see if anything comes of it. The order now then, Ollie Wilkinson leads, second is Senan Fielding the Audi, third is Jack Mitchell in the 2Cs McLaren that just went through, and fourth is Dean McDonald in the second of the 2Cs cars, fifth for Sam Neary in the Team Abacar. Those 5 cars, 96, 30, 10, 9 and 8, was a pit stop essentially. They've made 1 pit stop, whereas a lot of others have made 2. Then it's Adam Ballon, who's the highest placed car on 2 stops, and he is in 7th place overall, ahead of Joe Osborne, who is in his first stint in the race. This car then, the number 2 car, is running currently down in 9th place, second highest placed car that has made 2 stops. So up to Coppice Corner he goes, and we're hearing that the reason Race Control wanted to see that replay with Berman and Ballon moment is because they too have spotted that carbon fibre. It was actually already on the track. What I think it was is one of those little marker posts they put on pit lane exit.
Okay.
They were knocked into the air at the start of the race, and I think that was what maybe got thrown up by the cars, or either Elmer Berman or Adam Ballon. Tom Hornsby says that it's worth noting that Phil Keen's fastest lap is 3/10 under the existing lap record set by Nicky Team. So when you're going 3/10 of a second quicker than Nicky Team, you're doing something right.
Yeah, I tell you what, that'll be noticed by Nicky Team. Honestly, genuinely, it matters. These guys are trying to earn a living. This is how they pay their mortgage. Being quicker, you're only as good as your last race. The pressure on these guys to perform. And look, let's be candid. Sorry, Phil, but you're not getting any younger. Look, Wilkinson went wide there, didn't he? Did you see the whole car bounce around on the exit there? It flicked off the curb, caught the grass. But look, I guess he's got Fielding in his mirrors, doesn't he? And Fielding's catching him.
Yeah, now this is, I know that they're only fighting for the lead because of other people pitting, but what a performance this is, what a stellar performance it's been from the Audi team. Because
Did you just... you did, didn't you?
I might have done. Because this car is only in its second appearance ever in the championship. It's new to the team. They don't have that much mileage under their belt. He is catching Ollie Wilkinson. The Audi could lead this race before too much longer. Yes, the pit stops have helped, but that won't matter to them, will it?
I can't take you seriously after that Stella Motorsport, of course, which run the Audi. Yeah, I mean, look, Fielding we know is quick. Won races in the Audi GT4 car last year with the same driver, with Richard Williams. They weren't where they wanted to be at Brands Hatch in this car. It was their first time out. They didn't really get a full grip of the car, but he is coming at Wilkinson fast. Wilkinson is leading. Is this the first time he's led a race? I think it might be, but you know, when you're leading, you want to hang on to that because it gets the headlines. The guys out behind us in the media room have noted it. Wow.
This is not
cause problems.
What is going on today? So, Ollie Wilkinson has just been given a drive-through penalty, just as we were saying that he's doing a fantastic job leading the race. So the Audi is going to lead the race, at least we got that bit right, but not necessarily in the way that Senna and Fielding would have liked. So I have to say I haven't seen that on our timing screen, but that I'm going to trust the graphic that just appeared on the screen. And so the Optimum car is going to have to come into the pit lane. He was actually just starting to get back away from the Audi as well, so that will be most frustrating.
Look, I'll tell you what we'll do. Any one of the teams listening to us right now, come and see us, give us a bribe, we'll say something good about a rival, and they will have a problem. The commentator's curse is real.
We're on fire today, I have to say. So Ollie Wilkinson then is about to put a lap on and a 1 second stop-go penalty for car 57. The GT4 Championship leader's getting a stop-go penalty now as well for a short pit stop. Their pit stop was 1 second under the minimum time, and that will get them a penalty. It's quite a hard judgment call that the drivers have to make. You were discussing this with Bryn actually off air earlier on, because the team are counting you down. The time limit is from pit in to pit out. It's not a stationary time.
Correct.
So the team anticipate it. They say, right, well, if we release you at this time, you'll get to the pit exit at this time.
Yep.
And they only have to be a fraction out to get you in a lot of trouble.
Look, I mean, we have two countdowns. We have our chief engineer talking to us in our headset, counting down 10, 9, and they're counting to the exit of the pits. And our job is to try and manage the speed between 40 and 50 Ks so that we exit ideally on the minimum pit stop time. But we also have a counter in the car, and the two sometimes conflict.
Right, okay, well, yeah, it is tricky, and a lot of that decision often comes down to the driver, but they're not necessarily in the right position to make the call. This is the 57 car coming in for its stop-go, so this is Gus Bowers, who is in here for his second and final stint in the race, and 57 look almost certain now to lose the championship lead depending on how the TF Sport strategy works out, but it definitely looks like it's going to work quite well. The most frustrating thing, you trundle down the pit lane, it seems to take forever, and then you stop for a second and they say, right, on you go.
Yeah, it's the most frustrating thing you can experience. It really genuinely is. I think we're going to go and talk to Bryn in a moment. He's talking to the guys from Bentley to find out what went on.
Well, you've been causing problems up there with your commentary. I've been chatting to the Team Parker Racing guys, and Scott Morgan got out the car and he said to me, well, he didn't know what the problem was, some engine problem along the way, losing power. They pulled the car into the garage and they've been poring over it for the last 5 minutes or so, and it seems to be an electrical problem. They've been clipping away at the wires, and I'm not sure if the car's going to get back out on track at the moment. Scott Morgan doesn't seem too sure.
Do you know, Graham, whenever I hear the words, it's an electrical problem, my heart sinks, because they are the hardest problems to diagnose. Once you diagnose them, it's a pretty quick fix, but it's finding out what exactly is wrong.
Actually, it's not a quick fix.
Yeah.
You know, it is faster, genuinely, to change an engine than it is to change a wiring loom.
Yeah.
These wiring looms, I promise you, are a day or 2 days' work. And so the worst thing you can hear is its electrical problem. We're talking about some cars have a mile of cabling them, and you've got to find the problem.
Yeah, exactly. Car 8 and 26, by the way, no further action, so that is the Team Aber car and the Ultimate Speed car. We never did get to the bottom of what the incident in question was, but it clearly wasn't that significant, because Speed Stadium, the Clerk of course has decided no penalty is required. Now the battle for the lead is getting very tasty now, as Ollie Wilkinson is held up in traffic there, the 58 HHC McLaren getting in the way, and Sennan Fielding thought he saw his chance to get alongside. Now you'd think that Sennan's team were on the radio here to him saying, look, that car in front of you has a penalty to serve. You don't need to fight this too hard.
It doesn't have a penalty.
Oh, it doesn't?
I've just had confirmation that it doesn't have a penalty, so this is a genuine fight for the lead. So no wonder Ollie's fighting it so hard. The bloke wants to stay in front.
Right, OK, there we go. So apologies for that. Then the information we were given said that there was a penalty for 96. There is no penalty. This is, as Graham says, a genuine fight for the lead. So this is getting particularly tasty, since Jack Mitchell is also taking time out of them as well. Jack Mitchell in the 2C's car, number 10, in third position, is only 1.3 seconds off the lead. So the top three covered by 1.3 seconds, and his teammate Dean McDonald wasn't far behind them, but he's just dived for the pit lane. That might be a sign that Jack Mitchell's on his way to the pits fairly shortly as well. More traffic, that's Warren Hughes and the GT4 leader Matt Cowley, who are rather holding up the overall race leader, but again, not much that Cowley could do about that really. Fielding with a good exit there from the old hairpin. Dean McDonald is in to hand back over to Angus Fender for the second time this race. But what is going on track? It's still the McLaren in front, but Sennan Fielding, a bit of damage there to the front left corner. Again, that's just superficial, but the deeper we get into the race, the more intensity, the higher that intensity level gets, the more anxious drivers are to make moves and get stuck in, and I think we're going to see a lot more of this really close quarters racing going into the final hour.
Yeah, and I noticed that on occasion the passenger mirror, the right-hand mirror on Wilkinson's car, is moving around a great deal. Now, he might have a radar in the car, and what most of us have in the car is a radar camera facing back with lights that tell us if someone's getting closer. It's like a disco in there. And the mirrors we don't use as much as we used to in the old days, but I tell you what, if it wobbles around like that, it can be a real distraction. And I think we saw the contact on that side of the car, so...
Yeah, that's a good point. As in comes Sennan Fielding. I was about, the very next question I was going to ask you is, do Stella bring the Audi in? Because it's clearly getting held up.
Yeah, they've done the right thing, haven't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Also in, by the way, Sam Neary to hand over to his dad Richard. So this is now the second wave of second pit stops. Oh, the Audi there was a bit impeded getting in, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's difficult. You know what you have to do? It goes against every grain in your body. When I've had to come in, you have to go in slower. But your brain thinks, stop, go, quick. And you can't. Because really, if you manoeuvre the car like you are in a multi-storey car park, you'll lose maybe a second. But if you overshoot like you did there, it could cost a lot more. The fuel rig pipes are only as long as they are. They often don't reach, and the car has to be pushed back on occasion. So it's a cool head that it's always a better approach.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you have that minimum pit stop time, you kind of don't have to rush, but that again is easier said than done in the heat of battle. So now Ollie Wilkinson can breathe for a second, but not for that much longer, because Jack Mitchell is now closing in again, 1.6 seconds off the race lead at the moment, and there is James Baldwin. Now, Baldwin is a lap behind these cars, but of course he has made his second pit stop already, so he is not in direct competition with these cars, but he will be essentially in competition with them by the end of the race. And as we move towards that final set of pit stops, we also have to start thinking about success penalties, and that number 2 car does have the 15-second success penalty, easy for me to say, to serve when we get to the final set of stops. In comes Jack Mitchell, so number 10 is coming in from second place, so Ollie Wilkinson now can breathe a sigh of relief because he has got a slightly bigger cushion now over, well, who is now going to inherit second place? It's going to be Ballon, isn't it? So this will now almost put Ballon back to the front of the field.
Yeah, Wilkinson's triggering all these pit stops. He's causing all these changes because people don't want to lose any time. So I'm not saying he's slow, but he isn't the fastest. So when people are catching him, the team are intelligently stopping them first. Oh, hang on, where have we got here? Where's into the last corner, I think. Isn't that the old pit lane entry we see there?
Yeah, Luke Seczkowski in the number 33 Tagiwa sponsored Century Motorsport
I'm glad
run
you said
car.
that.
Yes, I know Luke quite well. He's a very experienced club racer, and he and the Tagiwa squad are pretty well known actually in UK motor racing. You're making a big step up here into British GT. That is the all-AM driven car, so he and David Whitmore are both AM graded drivers. Now they should be able to push that out of the way, surely.
I don't know. I don't think there's an entry there. I don't know. Funny enough, I've never pulled over that part of the track. I don't think there's an entrance there. So can you leave a car there for the whole race? I'm not sure. It's not in a dangerous position. I tell you what, the team principals are doing right now. They wish we were focusing on that part so they could see if it would trigger a safety car.
Yeah. Let's just not show it so we keep the suspense. No, there is an end that you can get into the pit lane that way. What I can't remember off the top of my head is if there's a gate at the end of that path, but it doesn't really matter. As long as they get it out of the way, it should be okay. And it's downhill as well, so the marshals ought to be able to get it out of the way. But again, this is a decision that lies with the clerk of the course, Peter Daly, whether or not we need a safety car. He won't throw safety cars just for the sake of it, Peter. He's reasonable. He likes to let the race play out if he can. A safety car will only get thrown if it is the safest course of action, and he will, I'm sure, be deliberating right now to see what exactly they do. If we did get a safety car, though, that would completely change the entire complexion of the race, because we're not yet in the window that we can make our final set of pit stops and get that driver to the end. So you would kind of be stuck. And this is the gamble you take. If you do take that early pit stop that we saw Barwell and the TF Sport squad take, you're kind of hedging your bets then that you won't get another safety car deep in the race, which other people can benefit from, but you can't because you've now tied yourself to that strategy. Yeah,
absolutely. It's all about... Look, it's so difficult. You're trying to get the maximum time out of your fastest driver. You're going looking for for safety cars, hoping they'll come at the same time. I'll never recover the car, that's good. It's a very difficult balance. I'm just watching Ballon, and what's really interesting, we watch his lap time every time. In clean air, Adam is quick. He loses, I mentioned it earlier, so much time in traffic. He's losing 1 to 2 seconds every lap, just coming past GT4 cars, and that is the difference. That could be what wins this race or loses this race. It really could. What is he? 1 minute 3 seconds behind. The minimum pit stop is, Andy,
110 seconds.
110 seconds. So he is technically in the lead.
Don't you throw questions like that at me when you know I don't have it in front of me. 110 from memory is what the minimum pit stop is.
You're right. I knew it was a trick question.
Thanks, Graham. I can't wait to have you back again. So yeah, you're right. He will come back out with the race lead. Joe Osborne, by the way, is third place at the moment. We ought to say some nice things about Joe. My regular co-commentator on British GT. Well, he's back out for his second appearance of the season in third position. And the Balfe Motorsport squad, they still owe us another pit stop, but they will be happy to see that car running in a podium place. Right, with news of Rob Collard and hopefully able to shed some light on the Barwell strategy, let's head back down to the pit lane to Bryn.
Yes, strategy is a question that has been asked a lot, actually. Rob Collard thought he was going to be out and sitting in the garage for quite some time, but Sandy Mitchell had a valve come loose front right, so we had a very slow puncture, and they decided to make use of the pit stop and get Rob back into the car to complete his time. So rather than throwing the pit stop away, they thought they might as well make use of it. So done and dusted for Rob Collard.
Well, thank you, Bryn. That's really interesting. We had no idea about that. So couple of things then. So that, first of all, is again why the teams love this format, where you have freedom of pit stops. In a normal race, that would have been game over, because that would have been an extra pit stop that you didn't need to take. They can count that now, as long as they can work out the driver timings, they can now count that as a mandatory stop. I also wonder, though, because they were one of the first to come in and make that early second stop, did that maybe trigger a few other teams sort of thinking, oh, well, if they're doing it, maybe we should be too? And actually, it was never planned.
Yeah, look, Barwell are the masters of the rule book. I think Chris Nadell, who with Mark Lemmer owns the team, I think every night they read the rule book. They do. They know it better than anyone, and the team is very well respected. So when they do something a bit odd, I'm afraid the other teams do sit there and watch. Well, if they're doing it, maybe we should. Little did they know they were recovering from the problem.
Brilliant. So, had a couple of miraculous recoveries today, haven't we? Ram Racing with their spin in the first stint, and Barwell very much dodging a bullet there then with a slow puncture. And this car is very much still in contention. They're running down in ninth place at the moment, but as I say, we're still waiting for some of the pit stops to shake out. They have lost some time, haven't they? Because they're behind the Audi, they're behind Angus Fender, they're behind Sam de Haan, so they're also behind, Optima, of course, have yet to come into the pit lane, so I think they have lost a bit of time maybe from that, but again, could have been a lot worse. Naturally, the Stella Audi is only a couple of car lengths up the road, so this is a genuine fight for position now between Richard Williams and Rob Collard. Again, both silver drivers. You would argue maybe Rob is the more experienced, maybe the quicker of the two. Certainly seems to be gaining on the Audi now. And we know that when this all shakes out, this should still be for a position inside the top 5.
Yeah, I mean, you say it's a quicker driver. He made a mistake there onto the straight, gone in too hard, had to get out the throttle, lost the rear of the car a little bit. He's pushing, he's missed the apex here. So, look, he's trying hard, but let's be candid. I'm sorry, Rob, I'm about to say it. He's not as young as he used to be. He barely got his helmet off. He's back in the car. He's going to be tired. He wanted a cup of tea. And he didn't get to use the bathroom. So this is about maximum mental strength. And just focus, focus, focus. He knows what's at stake here. There's a potential podium, or potentially even a win.
It's a point worth making, I think. And I don't like to bang on about Rob's touring car career because he's very much trying to try something new here in GTs. But touring car races are 20-25 minutes long. He's been racing in touring cars. Oh, hang on, interrupt myself because there's an incident being investigated here between cars 2 and 97, and also that is the number 6 car of Ian Loggy racing not for position though with Adam Ballon. That's Ballon trying to put a lap on him. They're also trying to lap the 97 car, so this is all getting quite busy. But back to Rob Collard for a moment. Touring car races, 20-25 minutes. He's been doing touring car racing for over 20 years now. That has been his life. Little short, sharp 20-minute bursts of adrenaline and energy, and then go sit down for a couple of hours and wait for the next race to start. Before that, he had years of short oval experience, even shorter races. Okay, still very physical, but not over an hour, nearly an hour and a half in the car, in the heat. It's getting hotter now as well as the afternoon wears on. That will take a toll on anybody if it's not what you're used to.
It's so true. You know, I started in endurance karting. I was doing 2 to 3 hour races, and I went and did my first sprint race in a catering. And I was just getting into my stride, and someone put the checkered flag out. And it took me a long time to recover. And when I came back to endurance racing, it was the most natural thing I could do. And you're right. He's got to try and keep that level of focus. I said earlier, he's adapted to it brilliantly. But are we watching Baldwin here trying to unlap himself from Wilkinson? Well, that could be an interesting dynamic, couldn't it? Because Baldwin is on it. He is lapping so quickly. In the 28s, when everyone else is in the 29s still. And again, look, I'm going to point something out to you about Ballon. We're not on the screen at the moment, but he's losing a heap of time behind Noggy. A heap of time. That could be the difference between the race win and not. Yeah,
so to put that into perspective, James Baldwin, who we were looking at now, was the fastest man on the track last time, 1:28.9. Ballon, 1:32.3.
Exactly.
That is 3.5 seconds that he's losing to James Baldwin. And they're not, this is the tricky thing though, because they're not actually together on track. They're not racing wheel to wheel. But in an hour's time, they might be for the race victory. But it's quite hard sometimes for Ballon maybe to, obviously he understands he's losing time, but to understand the context of that, it's quite hard, I'd imagine, when you're in the car, in the heat of battle, to really truly wrap your head around that.
Well, you mentioned it earlier. What happened to him here a year ago? He tripped over a car. It's probably scarred him. He's probably more cautious than he used to be, and we're seeing a lot of caution from Adam. And so there'll be a bit of him that Loggy should pull over. He should. He's not in the fight with him, but when have you ever seen a race driver pull over? Doesn't matter if it's position or not. And so it'll be interesting to pan out. Just watching Ollie here. Ollie will be determined to stay ahead of Baldwin. Baldwin is a gamer. Well, actually, he's not a gamer. He actually has the race before and then went gaming. I think that's very important to say as a race driver. Gamers are good, but race drivers are better. And here he is now, under pressure from this guy who's the world's fastest gamer. And Ollie wants a factory contact, but this guy we're watching now, surely he's destined for great things. He's racing with Jenson Button. I think people know of that guy. He's got a little bit of influence, and maybe a little bit of influence with McLaren, maybe.
Yeah, possibly.
And so, right there in your mirrors is your future. Are you going to get a job or not? Well, I better race the bloke, right?
That Jensen bloke won a world championship or something, didn't he?
I think so.
Pretty handy driver, but so too is James Baldwin, and he is applying the pressure now to Ollie Wilkinson. So as we've said, this is not for position. Wilkinson is the leader, but he's done one less pit stop than the number 2 car, and we know a pit stop loses you around a lap or so total. So this is still a significant battle to be had, and Anytime that Baldwin loses stuck behind the Optimum McLaren is genuine time loss that could play into Optimum's hands afterwards, especially considering they don't have a success penalty, whereas the Jensen Team Rocket RJN car, the number 2 machine, does. That's put a lap on the Speedworks car, by the way, which we haven't really mentioned much. The number 23 Toyota, James Kell, running 5th in GT4 at the moment. They've made 2 pit stops, so they have 1 more pit stop to complete. And that Toyota has, well, I was about to say, the next car behind them is the number 57 championship leading HHC car, except it won't be because that car has just been given a drive-through penalty. Is this not
again.
Is this not the second penalty as well that car's had? Because 57,
right.
yeah, they've already made 3 stops. They had a stop go for a short pit stop, and now a drive-through. So what could a drive-through be? Track limits or some other driving standards problem?
Well, yeah, and the trouble is we don't know, do we? But it's devastating for them. This will be the championship. I mean, they won't have the lead by the time this race is finished. And you and I are destroying careers with everyone we talk about. It's from here we have the Lamborghini back in the pits. Rob Collard is in. I assume he's now finished his minimum driving stint. Is it now Mitchell to the end? It must be touch and go.
Yes, because, well, so there's 65 minutes to go. And he definitely didn't do 35 minutes in his first stint, did he? So I think they've worked it out. He's just within the window now to get to the end. This, therefore, is their final pit stop. This is where, they have to serve their 20-second success penalty. So that 78 car is now going to fall further behind after this pit stop than it ordinarily would. They've also made 2 pit stops, though, since the Optimum car made its first. So they're now a full 2 pit stop cycles ahead of some cars, and they've served their penalty. This is a risk, though, because if we now get a safety car, their race is over.
You're right, and it's such a balance. I mean, look, they didn't want to do that last time. We know that. We know they had a problem with the tyre valve. So this is a gamble that was forced upon them. Are we going to get a safety car? Well, look, we ran the whole of Silverstone last year, 3R race, without a safety car. We had one at the start. Yep, accidents happen at the start. Shall I put my neck on the line and say we won't have a safety car?
Given the way today's gone, that's the worst thing you could have done. But yes, it's maybe not as likely as it would have been previously. We have fewer GT4 cars, for example. That's often a catalyst for drama. And if you do go off here, yes, there's gravel traps and barriers you can hit or get stuck in. But you do have grass. There are live snatch vehicles they can send out to remove the car as well. So it's not like somewhere like Alton Park, for example, where if a car goes off, 90% chance there's going to be a safety car. Here, there are ways around that. There are ways you can avoid it. And we've got lucky with the 33 BMW where that stopped, and other incidents that we've had on track that haven't brought out a safety car. So maybe not. Right, out goes 78, right behind 72, I think, although, of course, not on the same lap anymore. No, they aren't on the same lap because Ballon owes us his 3rd pit stop. Sandy Mitchell is into the end then. Matt Cowley is in as well to hand over to Sean Albert again. 20-second success penalty being served here because they won the race at Brands Hatch 3 weeks ago. And the Mustang, it was leading earlier, but now again, interestingly, they've chosen to take this pit stop at the earliest possible moment. Normally, the pattern has been they lead, and then they pit, and TF take the lead, and then TF pit, and they get the lead again, but that hasn't happened this time. They pitted before the TF Sport cars have this time.
I think the TF95 is the genuine leader. They don't have a penalty, and so Connor is actually doing very nice laps. He's lapping in the 37s, which is where he needs to be. If he can get into the 36s, even better. He's far, far ahead now of that, the number 97, the Ram car.
Yes.
That's what it's a Ram car, because it rams into them, you see.
Yes.
And so he's far away from that, and that's important. And look, in actual fact, number 97 is going to get distracted by a car that actually is not in too much of a race with him. I think he's looking good for Conor O'Brien, I do.
Ironically, speaking of Ram, the Ram Racing Mercedes is in, look, right behind the Mustang, and that is a car that does not have a success penalty to serve. That will, though, be their final pit stop. So Sam Dehaan handing back over to Patrick Kujala. 57, by the way, their penalty, just to clear that up. It was a pit lane infringement. I know no more than that, but a pit lane infringement. Not a short pit stop, because we know that's a different penalty. So too many.
Sometimes you have to put a clip to stop fire. You have to put a little negative clip onto the back of the car. So many teams forget to do it, and if you do that, or maybe you haven't got the fire extinguisher nearby, it gets you a penalty.
Okay, right, so yeah, that may well be what that was all about. So Ram then, who I think are still in contention, if not for the win, certainly for a podium here today. I think they might be a safety car away from challenging for the win, but the cars that were ahead of them, by and large, with the exception of 72, do have success penalties to serve. So back out goes Patrick Kujala, and the 69 car that was being driven by Sam Dehaan is now back in the race. There is Ollie Wilkinson, still sitting on just one pit stop. So they're going to have to make 2 pit stops inside the final hour, aren't they?
Yeah, but you know, you said it. He's leading the race. He doesn't need to let anyone by. All he's doing right now is costing the car that probably could win a chance of winning, because the guy's stuck behind him. He's got absolutely no obligations on him. But you know what? I'd do the same. I wouldn't let him by either.
Because the thing is, 96 is a lap ahead of number 2. It's not being lapped by number 2, in which case there is a responsibility to get out of the way. He has absolutely no responsibility to make life easy here for James Baldwin. And again, this is a situation that James may not be used to. He's new to racing at this level, multi-class racing, you know, dealing with pit stop strategies and things, and he'll be sitting there now, and the team will need to be coaching him. Don't get frustrated.
He's pitting.
Come into the pit lane. There you go. That's a good way of getting out of trouble. So James Baldwin is in, and Michael O'Brien will take over for the final pit stop. 15-second success penalty to be served here. There might be an element of reaction here as well, because the 78 car has just pitted, 69 have pitted. They're the cars they're essentially fighting with here, and are on a similar strategy with. So I suppose it makes sense to kind of copy what they do.
Yeah, and look at that. Look to the left of the screen. Brand new boots for Michael O'Brien. You watch this kid go when he gets in. I think we're going to see him. Look, one thing Michael doesn't like doing is being slower than anyone. But he's quick anyway. I think, actually, that played them back into contention.
Right.
That stop at that moment is good timing. So I know Sean Goff. I used to race with Sean Goff. He's the owner of Optimum Motorsport. He's a proper Yorkshire boy. And he doesn't take no nonsense. And he'd have been saying to Ollie on the radio, don't let this guy go. But timing hasn't worked in their favour.
No, and of course it may well have been that Jensen Team Rocket RJN would have wanted to bring the 2 car in earlier, but they couldn't because of this maximum driver time. So there is a bang on an hour left, basically. It might be that Michael couldn't do much more than an hour, therefore they had to leave him out. So you are kind of restricted by the strategy, but there is a lot more freedom than there ordinarily would be. Worth mentioning as well that we do run the same system at Silverstone in our regular 3-hour race, and of course we are yet to go to Silverstone for the Silverstone 500 this year. Silverstone has the honour of hosting the championship deciding race for the Intelligent Money British GT Championship this year. It's not a Donington decider as it has been in recent years, a Silverstone showdown instead to decide the championships, and that is going to be a really great way to round out the season.
Yeah, we're just seeing coming on our screens that there's going to be an incident involving the car on screen now, number 2, and car number 97. They're going to investigate it after the race. So we didn't see that on television. I'm not sure what's taken place there. 97 is, of course, a GT4 Aston Martin, the TF1.
Yes, I'd imagine that's an issue with back markery and lapping the slower car. Maybe there was a bit of contact, not too sure. The 61 car then is the Academy Motorsport Ford Mustang, being driven now in this final stint by Jordan Albert, who put such a great stint in the previous race at Brands Hatch. 72 does not lead the way yet. Adam Ballon on the previous lap was about second and a half or so slower than Ollie Wilkinson. He is in danger here of being caught by Joe Osborne, but Joe Osborne is not on the same stint as Ballon. Osborne is a pro, Ballon is an AM, as we've documented, but still, we could have a battle here for second place. You can see Joe in the white and orange McLaren. I have to say, I do like that livery as well. Very clean livery on the Balfe McLaren this year. And Joe Osborne, who was fighting for the race lead here a month ago when he last raced in the championship, and been a busy boy. He's been racing over in Europe a lot this year with other McLaren customer teams, and this is the life of a pro driver, isn't it? You go to a different racetrack, often in a different country, with a different team and a different co-driver every week, and that's how you make your living.
It is. It's a real talent, you know, because they drive fast, but the real thing to being a professional race driver is actually working with people like me. I'm a bronze driver, and working with people like me, you know, we're businessmen, and we don't get to spend the time in the car. It's the single biggest difference. It's not to do with talent, he says, as a bronze driver. Obviously I'm as fast, but it isn't. Seriously, it's to do with the amount of time. These guys, their office is the paddock, their office is the car, and you know, to them it's just normal. For you, this is exciting to watch. For the viewer, oh my goodness, this is just normal, regular, daily life. And in fact, you know what, if they're honest, sometimes it's a bit of a grind.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like turning up to someone's office and sitting on their desk and going, oh my god, he answered the phone, oh my god, this is the most exciting thing I've ever seen. It's just, it is a day job for them. This is what they do to make a living, but it is rather a nice job to have, it's got to be said, and Joe Osborne is pretty good at it. He's also quite a good commentator, but don't tell him I said that. And he
He's
will
got
be,
silly hair, though.
well, couldn't possibly comment. Yes, he will be back in the comms box later on this year, but for now he's enjoying himself racing against Adam Ballon. And he will be applying the pressure here to one of our championship contenders. It's funny, it was Joe that was telling us the story at Donington a year ago about how you can apply pressure to championship contenders. A jar of mayonnaise was involved in some way. I can't quite remember the details.
I don't want to know.
He will be, I'm sure, recalling that story now, because the person he was talking about was Adam Ballon. And that must actually be quite an interesting dynamic when you've been commentating on people. Maybe you don't expect to ever have to race against them again. And now he's out on track with these people. There might be a few scores to be settled.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I've been rude about a few people, so I'm staying up here till late. Everyone's gone home. But look, I think it's interesting for me. What are they going to tell Ballon? What will the team tell Ballon? Will they tell him, let Osborne go? Ballon's got another 15 minutes in the car. I think it might be another 13 minutes. It's something like that. So probably the best thing to do is let him go, because we know that Adam in clean air is much better than Adam that's anywhere near anyone else. So I think that's interesting to watch. When are they going to stop this car?
Well, the same time probably that Joe Osborne stops, because these are the two cars on the same strategy, aren't they? Neither of them have made their second or third pit stops yet, but they've got to be getting up towards the end of driver limits. And remember, both Joe Osborne and Donnie Wilkinson have to get back in the car at the end. So might they do a reverse of the Barwell strategy and pit very late, inside the final 5 minutes maybe, so leave this driver in, get them out of the car when they've got about 5 minutes left of their driver time, and then plug them in right at the end of the race.
That's the traditional path. That's what you'd normally do, but Barwell's triggered everyone into stopping early.
Exactly, so Barwell are the trend setters here in the British GT Championship. Battle for position here, Dan Vaughan and James Kell, third place in GT4 up for grabs here, and the 97 TF Sport Aston Martin. Is this a genuine fight? Yes, it is. They both made 2 pit stops, so they are on the same or similar strategies here. And this is it's always interesting to watch this Toyota. It is new to the championship, as we've said, and it certainly looks like it's a quick car out there. It seems to handle well. But as they develop it and the season goes on, it's only going to get quicker and quicker and quicker. What we don't necessarily know yet is where it is particularly strong. Is it one of those cars that's good on the brakes? Good change of direction through the chicane there, and he gets straight up the inside of Dan Vaughan. I think the simple answer is that car's quite good everywhere, isn't it?
Yeah, it was interesting. I was thinking the same as you, Andy. I wanted to see where its strengths were, and we know that actually he's not that strong under brakes from last time. And look at the cutback that is it Caroline that's, or no, it's Vaughan that's getting the cutback on him. I mean, as it happens, it's done, to be honest with you. This is a really bizarre little corner. You can't see it on TV, but trust me, it's got a lot of camber in it, and unless you hold that car in tight, the car washes wide, it understeers off into the grass. So I think that's job done now, but I think it's here where we see the Toyotas particularly strong. So we're watching round turn 1, I think we'll see an advantage. I think in the high speed stuff, it's clearly very, very, very good.
It seems to have good lateral grip, as Joe Osborne is in, so again, yes indeed, which will be rather damp and sweaty, I'd imagine, after what was quite a long stint. I'm choosing to ignore you. Quite a long stint for the factory McLaren driver, and Joe Osborne, well, he'll hand back over to Stuart Proctor for the shortest amount of time possible, with the greatest respect to Stuart. But Joe, this is the other tricky thing, of course. Stuart is the customer at the end of the day. He needs to make sure he's getting value for money, but and since they're not necessarily in the fight for overall honours, they might choose to let him have a bit more time behind the wheel. So there is the number 2 car then, which has now dropped, of course, down to 7th place after making its 3rd and final pit stop. So the cars that have made 3 pit stops that have not been penalties, that is still the car that is the highest placed with 3 stops. Ian Logie is ahead of him. One of those 3 stops was a penalty being served. There, the 69 car has also made 3 pit stops, and Jack Mitchell likewise. So that is the battle, isn't it? 2, 10 and 69. I think they're all done for pit stops now. They've served all of their success penalties. This is a straight race to the end now.
Yeah, and Michael's pace, I predicted it, didn't I? Michael's pace on this set of tyres is a lot better. And I think we know he's on brand new boots, we know he's got brand new tyres, and as I said earlier, there's 1 or 2 seconds a lap in the first part of the stint. We know he's also a safe pair of hands, but then Jack Mitchell, GT4 champion in 2018 with Century, if I remember rightly, and is a very experienced guy, has done Giannetta's on the Toka package, knows what he's doing. What have we got going on here? We got Lewis.
Yeah.
Is that Lewis going into the lead car?
Yeah, so this will be, and they're in now, I believe, they're in the pit lane. So Ollie Wilkinson is in for his second pit stop. But as we've said, that car will be back in fairly shortly, you'd imagine, for its third and final pit stop. So, of course, one of the benefits of this is you can steal a march on those that have had to serve success penalties because they've already served them. Now, having made their final stop, they've dropped further back. You can gain yet more track position on them this way. This will give the race lead to Adam Ballon. He's not yet come through in the 72 Lamborghini, but Ballon will get the lead. He still owes us a pit stop. Angus Fender and Richard Williams will go second and third, also owing a pit stop. And we wait and see where the number 96 car comes out in relation to 10 and 69, because it was in that little group, wasn't it? Of course, some of them have had success penalties to serve, so they may come out in front of them again. Sam Neary here in the number 8 car, the Team ABBA Racing car. Sam's been a bit of a revelation this year, and he's going well out there again today. His father, Richard, who he shares the car with, is down in the pits with Bryn.
Yeah, he certainly has got out the car, has been able to dry off a little bit, but you've finished your stint now, so Sam's going to take the entire time. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. We sort of elected to go really, really long with our first stint to get my driving time out the way. Sam's a good second and a half quicker than me. So but Sam's in now to the flag, and we think we've got all our AM time out the way earlier than all the other teams, which should mean that we should gain track position at the end. But, you know, you never know till the end, do you?
No, absolutely not. Was that the plan from the start?
Yes. Yeah, we didn't change our strategy with the incidents that happened at the beginning. Didn't affect what we were doing. It helped us in a way because all I was trying to achieve on my first stint was to just stay in touch with the cars in front and then overtake them by doing the longer duration. But,
yeah, well,
they had problems and we didn't, so we were lucky. Although I did get knocked into the pit lane on the opening lap. I took every one of those little markers out. One of the blue McLarens pushed me across into the pit lane, but it was all good. The car wasn't damaged, so it was good luck, really.
So all went to plan, apart from the drama. We'll keep an eye on it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Right, the Optimum car, thanks Bryn, the Optimum car has just come out of the pit lane. I'm just desperately trying to figure out where they came out. I think they have been big winners in all of this, but of course they have another pit stop still to serve, which is what's confusing me. So, yeah, they are out of sequence now, essentially, with a lot of those that they're racing with. So the 96 car will not have dropped quite as many places as it otherwise might have done. There it is. It's now being driven by Lewis Proctor, as we've said, but he will have one more pit stop to make. So that's 2 stops done for them. 2 stops also completed for the 72 Barwell car. Now that's the big question. So Barwell's Adam Ballon is how far? He's about a minute ahead of Michael O'Brien, isn't it? It's going to be quite tight, this, isn't it? I think, in theory, Ballon should come out with the lead, but not by a huge margin. The key is, though, that it's Phil Keane getting in for the final stint, who should be quicker than those around him, but it's going to be quite tight.
Yeah, I mean, based on our form today, we've probably just cursed Alan. But you're right, mathematically, you're right. He's about. It's going to be a really tight race, and if you look at Michael O'Brien, he's only 1.9 seconds ahead of Jack Mitchell in the 2Cs McLaren. But Michael is doing a better job. He's pulling away on every sector of every lap, not lap. So I think that battle is probably done. I think the next battle we need to look for is Patrick in number 69. He's only 0.3 of a second behind the 2Cs McLaren. That's where the scrap is. And that scrap really is for third place when things plan out.
Yeah, and none of those cars that you just mentioned, 210 or 69, owe us a pit stop anymore. This car does. Adam Ballon. So there you can see, that's a handy graphic, and good timing as well, just as we were talking about it. So remember, it's a minimum of 3 pit stops, but some of these pit stops, Ian Loggy being a prime example, are penalties, not pit stops. So this is actually the final pit stop being made for the number 6 Ram racing car, and Yelmer Berman will be getting in for the final 3/4 of an hour or so in car number 6. But certainly Ballon, Proctor, Fender, Williams, they all owe us one more pit stop, and once they serve those pit stops, they will have a clearer picture of what the order is going to be. But as we've said, they can serve those pit stops within reason wherever they want to. The HHC car is in. That is 58 Patrick Mathiasen. And Mathiasen brought that car in from 2nd place in GT4. And 58, I think I'm right in saying, yeah, they didn't finish at Brands Hatch, did they, of course? So they have no success penalty to serve. As through goes Lewis Proctor. So yeah, so he's only dropped down to 2nd place because a lot of the people that he was racing with have made an extra stop.
Yeah, we just had a stop-go penalty come up for number 26. That's the new Aston that's out, isn't it? So, yeah, pit stop infringement, we're told. That won't have a significant effect on the race. But what will have a significant impact on the race is actually the pit stop we just watched, Mateus. And is he leading the race? They've done their 3 stops. He wasn't far behind Conor O'Brien, the lead car at the moment. It's so hard to know, isn't it?
Yes.
If you think back now, what was it now? Over 2 hours ago, that TF pulled the pin early.
Yeah.
They pulled their cars in on lap 2. It's so difficult to work out what the optimum strategy is. No, I've done it now. I've said optimum.
I'm just trying to, so the TF cars, they're still yet to make their final pit stop. So they pitted very early the first time, but now they're going to have to pit late for their final pit stop. This is the battle you wanted to see, the one between the Patrick Kujala 69 Mercedes and the Jack Mitchell number 10 McLaren. This is for 6th place at the moment, but as we made the point, it could be for a podium place once we get to the end of the race. Oh, and that McLaren didn't look very happy over the curbs. He's in the gravel trap. Yeah, it didn't look like that was the ideal line through the corner. You said yourself, you have to be careful of those curbs, and some cars are more sensitive to the curbs than others.
No, he was being caught. I always talk to you about this, don't I, Andy? Driving in your rear view mirror, not driving out the front of the car. The track is ahead of you, it's not behind you. What he's done there is he's carried too much speed into the S's, and when you carry too much and it's too late, once you've committed, you go over the curbs. We're about to watch a replay in a second. You'll see he launches the car in. The problem is on the way in. On the way out, he's had no choice, smacked the curbs, lost the rear of the car a bit, did well to gather it up. I mean, he's going to lose a lot of time there, and I think that's probably 3rd place gone.
It may well be, because I think that Kujala will now pull the pin. He's been released. He's only 2.5 seconds behind O'Brien, so again, O'Brien won't be too happy about that, because I reckon Kujala might have the pace to catch him.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm desperate for them to pit Adam Ballon. I want to see this race run out. By my calculations, Adam must be due to stop any second now. I bet Adam's keen to get out as well.
Yes.
The bloke's leading the race, and he wants his super, mega quick superstar co-driver to get in and lead this race for him. I think it's going to be so tight on the exit of the pit lane.
So how long do we think Phil Keane did in the car? It was over an hour, wasn't it? It was about an hour and 10 or so, something like that.
Yeah.
So by that reckoning, they can't bring Ballon in, I reckon, until about half an hour to go, because otherwise Keane's going to exceed the 100 minutes. 26 is in trouble. They're in trouble with Peter Daly, the clerk of course, to just be given a pit lane penalty, and now they've got some sort of mechanical drama. Now let's hope this car can make it back to the pits. It doesn't appear to have much power, but I think it's got some power. It's not ground to a halt completely yet. Let's hope that Matt Manderson, who is the pro driver in that car, can get it back to the pit lane without stopping on track and causing a safety car. 9 goes through. Okay, that's Angus Fender running in 3rd position at the moment, 3.5 seconds behind Lewis Proctor, but about 0.6 of a second slower that time, because we believe he got held up in some traffic. Right on board there with the 2Cs car, down through the Craner curves, one of the most exhilarating sequences of corners in British, if not world motorsport.
I love Donington is my absolute favourite track, because there are only 2 slow corners. I mean, who wants to go slow, right? I'm a race driver. I want to go around fast corners, and all of these corners are very, very quick. Interesting to note that he was using 3rd round there. What will he use here? 3rd gear again. When I raced the previous generation car, the McLaren 650 around here, we were doing those corners in 2nd gear, which sounds surprising, but 2nd gear, trust me, is still very, very quick. You know, we're doing sort of 60, 80 miles an hour on there. But this car has been really developed very well. Developed by Rob Bell, the factory driver, and Joe Osborne's been in there a little bit as well. Not too much, because he's not very good, but he's going to get me for this in the paddock.
You are in so much trouble.
I know. but yeah, so Rob Bell's developed this car. Rob Bell, little known fact about the factory driver Rob Bell, he beat Lewis Hamilton to the Formula Renault Championship. So you've got a guy of that calibre developing this car. Put someone like Angus in there, who's pitting now, and of course, he's got a car that's seriously sorted. Yeah,
so Angus is in then from 3rd position for the final pit stop. The number 9 car last time at Brands Hatch did not trouble the podium. It was 11th place after getting involved in a few bits of contact. 57 are in as well. That's the car that was leading the GT4 Championship. Gus Bowers is in to hand over to Chris Westmail, and Speedworks are in as well. So that's James Kell, handing over to Sam Smelt, former BTCC racer from a year or so ago is Sam. and that will be their final pit stop as well. And the Speedworks car fourth at Brands Hatch, so again no success penalty for them. So it is all starting to unravel now. It's all starting to become a little bit clearer. But in GT3 we are, as we've said, still waiting for Adam Ballon and Lewis Proctor to come in for their final pit stop each. Tyre change there for HHC.
And they're doing a ride height adjustment there. They're lowering the ride height. So what's going on there is the driver's complaining the rear of the car's loose. So you try and put brake in the car to try and get the car to turn. So you try and brake means the car's nose down. So they lift the rear of the car to try and get it to turn. But that can make the back of the car very loose. And I know this car better than I know my wife. And the car can be very loose on the rear, but then it understeers. So you're fighting this dreadful balance of, well, I want the thing to turn, but I don't want it to turn too much. So they've lowered the ride height there, I think, to try and stabilise it. They didn't change tyres, so the driver's clearly very unhappy with the balance.
Yes, so I saw them doing something, but I wasn't sure if it was damage or an adjustment, so that's quite interesting. And of course, again, they have time to do this because of this minimum pit stop time. Also, remember, they are serving a 10-second success penalty too, so because of the third place last time, so that gives them an extra. You might as well use that time if you've got it. You've got to serve it. You might as well utilise it and try and make the car handle better.
Although unusual, you know. Trust me, I've moaned a lot about setup, but I've never seen anything like that before.
So, Adam Ballon then is leading the way. Lewis Proctor is in second place, 10.4 seconds behind him. So this is our first signal, I think, for how this race is going to pan out, because these two are both on the same strategy. They might pit at different times, but they both have one more pit stop to make. Proctor could catch Ballon here. He's over 2 seconds a lap quicker, and Ballon, as we've said, as soon as he hits traffic, seems to lose even more time. So a couple of points here. Not only does it mean that Ballon's going to have to watch his mirrors because Optimum are arriving, but does this mean that the 72 car is not going to come out with the race lead once all the pit stops are done?
I've sort of counted out the Optimum car. Maybe I shouldn't have done. I mean, Lewis is on new tyres. Let's put that first and foremost. He's taken a lot of curves. I don't know if you watched there through the essence of the car bounced around. And I mean, Lewis is on a mission. He's driving very well with 28.8 on the last lap. What is that? 3 tenths off the best lap the car's done all race. They're clearly on a mission. I know that the Proctors and Wilkinsons haven't always seen eye to eye, but this sort of thing, I bet they'll be best friends if they win.
Well, and it would be just the confidence boost that they and that team need. They sit 7th in the championship. They've only had one overall podium so far this season, excuse me. As the leader goes past the GT4 leader, Conor O'Brien, there to put another lap on him. Conor O'Brien still owes us one more pit stop, so too does his teammate Dan Vaughan. They are separated by an ever-increasing margin. 95 definitely seem to have the edge here today, don't they? That gap has been growing and growing throughout the course of the race. And we ride on board with Conor O'Brien now, the Irish driver, heading through McLean's corner. And Dan Vaughan, 38.4 seconds he's pulled, or this car has pulled on the sister car. They've had the same number of pit stops, they're on the same strategy as well. That is not going to make Jamie Caroline and Dan Vaughan very happy, is it? Yeah. Especially after what happened a few weeks ago.
Yeah, well, let's see what the balance of this car's like. Conor has... hang on, where's this?
That is Dean McDonald from 7th place. They just made their final pit stop, remember, and that looks like the old hairpin. Now, he's not stuck in the gravel, but the car is not going anywhere, and you'll know this as well. When the engines are hot, they've been running for a while. If you stall it, it can be quite hard to get it fired back up.
Well, actually, I happen to know, not from my own experience, that if you go backwards in this car, if you spin backwards and you don't drop the clutch, careful for
Don't get buried in the gravel, Dean! Oh, has he got it out?
I can't watch. He's out.
Just
so yeah, if you go backwards in these cars and you don't get the clutch down fast enough, it can destroy the whole powertrain.
Yeah.
And so I wondered there if he had a small problem, but I'd say a small one. I mean, look what he's just done. He's cost himself so much time. Do you think
the left rear has got damage, hasn't it? Let's see. So on board then.
Into the old hairpin. What happens?
Hits the curb.
Hits the curb too hard. Chuck the car around. Simple as that. He took too much curb.
I think there's damage to the left rear. What I don't know is whether he damaged it by hitting the curb or through the spin, or whether
shouldn't damage it.
But it was there's
You're
definitely.
Right. He's got a puncher, yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
that's not what happened. The car we saw him. He took a lot of curb, and the car. Well,
it could be effect rather than cause, maybe. I guess, couldn't it?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, I mean that's their race effectively over, isn't it? He needs to try and get off the racing line if he can.
what a shame as well, because we've been saying all day 2Cs need a good result, and both cars had potential in this race to get really good results. Now, okay, the number 10 car could still be in contention for a podium, but the number 9 car has been up there as well, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. You need two things in racing. You need to be fast, and you need to be lucky.
Yeah, exactly. So the left rear puncture for the number 9 McLaren, and well, maybe we can have a word with the team and find out whether that caused the spin or whether it was as a result of the spin. Adam Ballon leads the way then. And what's the gap over Lewis Proctor in the Optimum Motorsport McLaren? Now it is 4.8 seconds. Well, it was over 10 seconds about 3 laps ago. This is incredible from Lewis Proctor. He is no doubt about it going to catch Adam Ballon here. Now, again, to put this into context, Ballon is a bronze-graded driver. He is not supposed to be as quick as Lewis Proctor. And the payoff for that is that when Phil Keane gets in the car, he should be quicker. But this is the problem. You see the AM drivers in traffic.
Did you see that?
Exactly. They're losing so much time.
Yeah, look, it's not an AM driver thing. Look, there's too much made of AM versus. But there is, genuinely. We all have the same ability, right? We all got hands, feet, brakes. It's all about that mental game. And as I said earlier, Adam had a problem here. It cost him the title last year, and that was huge caution from him.
Yeah.
He could have easily sent that, no problem at all. He must have lost in that one sector alone at least 1.5 seconds. You can't do that kind of mistake. You've got to signal strong, aggressive moves.
So Dean McDonald then back out of the pit lane, and that of course was an unscheduled stop, so 4th stop of the day for them. And they come out just in front of the 33 BMW, which is relevant only in that they've got that car sorted. Whatever the problem was that saw it stop out on track earlier on, David Whitmore is back out in the Tagiwa liveried Century Motorsport BMW. As they fight for the lead. He's not flashing his headlights already.
He's got the you know, I used to race against Rick Parfitt Jr. Sorry, Rick, but I'm going to call you out. He used to push that button so much. I wanted to go around and just tape up the button. It was what have we got going on? That's the same car. He's got some kind of suspension failure.
Yeah.
That's what's going on.
So now that could be as a result of that curb strike, I guess.
No, he's lost the tyres coming off the rim. What is going on that car?
Yeah, so if the suspension's damaged, the tyre might not be sitting in there right, but surely they should have... is the wheel on properly?
It looks like suspension collapse to me.
Yeah, so the tyre hasn't actually gone. They probably just didn't realise. They assumed that the reason for the puncture was just a puncture.
Forgive me, but you think you'd notice?
Yes, but they didn't. So they're going to have. And of course, the problem is now they could be doing more damage by dragging the car around the track like that. So. From bad to worse, I think is the expression, isn't it, that would fit the number 9 car at the moment. And it is going to be caught by the overall race leaders going into the Fogarty S's, which is about the worst place you can find a car limping back with a problem. Adam Ballon, if he's been tentative and cautious around the lapped traffic, this is definitely going to catch his attention.
That cost him time.
Yeah, 100%. Yep. Lewis Proctor only 2.5 seconds behind him at the start of the lap. He's only about 2.5 car lengths back now. This is for the race lead.
Yeah.
Both of these cars are on the same strategy. Ballon makes a bit of a mistake there at the hairpin.
He defended fresh air. He caught the curb. It bounced the car wide. Look, it doesn't matter if you lose the lead. Don't lose time. He's turned it in early again. You see, he's defending far too early. When you defend early, you cost time. He can't lose time.
The thing is, I suppose, in his mind, that every lap he keeps that McLaren behind it is 2.5 seconds maybe less that Phil Keane has to buy back in the final stint. So just trying to think like an AM driver, you know, maybe he's thinking, if I can just hang on, it's a risk, because it could all go horribly wrong, but if he can just hang on for another, until the end of his stint maybe, or even just for another couple of laps, that could be huge. Speaking of huge, this is for 3rd place. Patrick Kujala ahead of Michael O'Brien. The reason that is so significant is that they are the highest placed cars that have completed all of their stops. So depending on where the 72 and 96 cars come out, this could be for the race lead.
Michael had a ridiculously slow lap the last lap out, 1:31.1. That was slower than Adam Ballon, who we know was, well, as we can see, he's under huge pressure. So I would not want to bet my house on who's going to win this thing.
Michael O'Brien is matching, as you said, Ballon, but Kujala is not as quick as Proctor has been. So if Proctor can clear the Lamborghini quickly,
it's over.
Yeah, he's going to get a good one out of the chicane. He's got the inside line for the Melbourne hairpin, and Adam Ballon is trying to squeeze, but the orange McLaren is already there. It's not like you can miss that car in your mirrors, really, is it? It pulls alongside, it goes in front, and Lewis Proctor takes the race lead for Optimum Motorsport with 30 22.5 minutes left on the clock and one more pit stop to be served for both of these cars. Where will they come out in the amongst the rest of the field? We can't be far away here from Barwell pitting that 72 car, and it's almost like I know what I'm talking about. In it comes. I thought it was going to be around the half-hour mark. In they come.
You're just showing off now.
So that lap, to my point I made a lap ago, that one lap that Adam Ballard held on, that was 2.5 seconds now that Phil Keane does not have to find in his final stint.
I'm going to employ you as my next race engineer, because you called that absolutely right. And I mean, look, the reality is that Adam, I keep talking about it, looked in his mirrors too much into the S's. He cost himself a heap of time. I knew it was done before he did. I called it before because he'd cost himself too much time on entry, lose penalty in the exit. What have we got here?
Senan Fielding in the pit lane, not for a pit stop, but for a 16-second stop-go penalty.
What do you do to get that?
Well, a short pit stop, but surely not by 16 seconds. I wonder if they forgot about the 14-second silver, because each...
okay.
No, it's only a GT4 thing, so... Okay. No, actually, I have no idea, but somehow they've miscalculated
They've run
massively.
out of fingers and toes,
I think they have, haven't they? So that car has a 16-second penalty, which is what they're serving right now, as here is the 69 car. So, when these cars come across the start-finish line this time, they should be somewhere in the vicinity of the 72 Lamborghini, and that will be a genuine fight for position. It's Phil Keane that's getting into the 72 Lamborghini. This, along with when the 96 car makes its final pit stop, this is what's going to shape the final half hour of the race.
I mean, what are we watching here? Are we watching the fact that the McLaren's harder on its tyres than the Mercedes? I mean, if you look at the last lap, Michael 29.8, Patrick in the Mercedes, almost 1.5 seconds faster. Leader stops. Well, let's see what happens now. Who's going to come out ahead?
Right, so through go Kujala and O'Brien, and Keane is still in the pit lane.
Keane's coming out.
So, yeah, so there we go. So they did not manage to get the lead. So the race lead at the end of all of this, I think, is going to be held by Patrick Kujala in the 69 Mercedes. 96 is in the pit lane as well then. And so that car is up on the jacks. Right, before this all goes really crazy, which I think is about to in the next 60 seconds or so, let's head down to the pit lane for a 2C's Motorsport update for him. We will try to get hold of Bryn in a moment or two. We will get in touch with him and hopefully find out what's going on with 2Cs. But yes, so I reckon at the moment the order is going to be 69-2, and then either 72 or 96, depending on how good Phil Keane's outlap is here. There is Phil Keane going through Coppice Corner. So it's not quite worked out, but when they pitted this car at the end of the opening lap of the race, they were about 8th. They were mired back in the midfield. By the time that Adam Ballard had been able to even think about overtaking a few people, they could have been 20 seconds off the lead. They're not going to be 20 seconds off the lead now. So this strategy has not got them the lead, but it's worked.
It has worked. Look, Phil is wrestling that car. He knows this is one of the most important outlaps he's ever driven. I'm just looking at his sector times. Middle sector was okay. Wasn't electric. He's got to get a bit more heat into those tyres. They come out of an oven. The tyres come out of an oven already warm, but they lose temperature sitting idle in the pit lane. And it's not a warm today. It isn't. Right, here we go. This is the battle for the lead. It looks like Keane's got it.
Yeah, well, for third place, really, we think, isn't it? Because they're behind Kujala and O'Brien.
Yeah, okay, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, so, they are, and that is now confirmed. So Phil Keane has come out behind those two, but ahead of the McLaren. So that one outlap that he's had was enough to undo, and this, again, back to my point, I'm not right often, so I'm going to make the most of this. If Ballard had led him through one lap earlier, Keane would not have come out in front of the McLaren. He would have had to overtake it on the track.
You're just not an attractive winner, are you? But look, I think that we're going to pass down to Bryn now and find out what's happening with car number 9 with McDonald and the 2C's McLaren. Or not. Bryn, are you there?
Well, I hope we haven't lost Bryn, because he's been finding some very interesting stories for us down in the pit lane. We'll get to the bottom of this, some sort of communication issue. In the meantime, though, I know Bryn is not shy, so I think there might well be a technical issue which we'll get to the bottom of. Let's focus on the racing for now, though, because at the end of this lap, the timing screen should now represent the actual order, because everybody, I believe, certainly of the front runners in GT3, have now completed their final pit stops. And it was a broken wishbone we're hearing for 2Cs, thanks Bryn. So broken wishbone that has, now whether that caused the off or was a result of the off, we don't know. Through then comes Patrick Ajala. He has a 2.7 second lead over Michael O'Brien in the number 2 McLaren. Third place is the number 10 2Cs McLaren, which we'd forgotten about.
We missed that.
Yeah, so that is actually in third position. It's now being driven by Jack Mitchell, 4.7 seconds behind O'Brien. Phil Keane is 2.3 seconds behind him in fourth, and Ollie Wilkinson is fifth, a further 1.3 back. The key here is they are 4 silver-graded drivers and Phil Keane. Phil Keane should be the fastest of that group. Can he gain 9.7 seconds on Patrick Ajala and overtake everybody in 27 minutes?
No, he needs a safety car. I think it's probably their only chance. He's lapping really well. He's 28.6, but then Patrick in the lead, he's only 3/10 slower. Looking at GT4 just quickly, Conor O'Brien in the 95 TF, I think he's got this thing sewn up.
Yeah, he's made all of his pit stops, hasn't he? And he is, according to my timing screen, a lap ahead of anybody
who
else.
Have we got stopping here? If I just...
that's 95. No, so they've just made their final pit
That's
stop.
why it was registering as 3 stops. I get it.
Yeah, so they were in the pit lane at the time. So they are going to have the lead, though, because I don't think they're going to lose 2 laps in the pit stops.
You hope not.
Well, yes, unless something goes drastically wrong. So Conor O'Brien will hand over to his co-driver, Patrick Kibble, who will be hoping to see the checkered flag this time rather than end up in the gravel trap. The GT3 leaders go through. So here we go then. Nearly 2.5 hours, just over 2.5 hours of racing have gone by, and the top 5 cars are 11.5 seconds apart. This format works, doesn't it?
Yeah, just a little bit. It's so much to play out. I'm just looking at Phil Keane's last lap. He went half a second faster than Jack Mitchell in front of him in the McLaren, who was 3/10 slower than Michael O'Brien, who was 2/10 slower than Patrick in the 69. I mean, what, the top 4 are covered by, what is that, something like 20 seconds? I don't know. And a safety car could easily come at any moment.
Well, yeah, that is the other thing that would completely change this. So, on the previous lap, Phil Keane did a 1 minute 28.5 slower than Patrick Ajala, the race leader. Now, okay, no, Phil's been out there for a few laps now, so the tyres should be up to pressure. We don't know what part traffic had to play in that, although I haven't seen a huge amount of traffic in the last few laps. So the fastest of the leading 5 cars, which realistically are the contenders right now, was the race leader. Second fastest was Phil Keane. Third fastest was Michael O'Brien. Fourth fastest, Ollie Wilkinson. And the slowest of that group was Jack Mitchell, the only one in the 1 minute 29, so the man in third place. So it's not as simple as the leader is quicker than second place, who is quicker than third, or vice versa. They're all pretty equal. They're going to keep trading lap times, aren't they? But it doesn't look like anyone has a significant advantage over the others.
No, and I think that Mercedes is very kind on its tyres. I think it clearly has an advantage. The engine's in the front, so technically there's less weight over the rear wheels. What we just cut to now is the fight for the lead, I think it is. We think it's for the lead because, of course, the other car's still in the pits. So at the moment, I think we've just seen that Collard, well, at the moment they're still second place. Of course, we're waiting. They had a 2-lap lead, didn't they?
Yeah.
So we don't know how this is going to play out.
That's what I'm trying to work out. I don't know whether 95 has just got back out. I think they might still be ahead, but they built up nearly a full lap's lead, possibly. Because remember, they didn't have a success penalty because they got nerfed into the gravel by their teammates. So maybe they'll all will be forgiven now if they win this race on the back of that. I somehow doubt it.
You keep referencing that as Conor O'Brien page.
I just think it's a bit of juicy gossip, and I like stirring the pot. No, the 95 car might actually, but that is actually, and this again is back to what Joe Osborne always tells me, if you keep finishing 4th, keep scoring good points, but don't pick up success penalties, it's not actually a bad way to go about winning a championship. No one's brave enough to try it, but if you find yourself losing out on a podium, all is not necessarily lost.
This is why Joe has never won a championship. That's not true. I've been fortunate enough to win a couple of championships in this series, and we did it by winning races. We did it by finishing on the podium. Our worst result was on 5th place. You need to finish as high as you can. And what we see here was 61 with, is it Albert in the car at the moment?
Yeah.
Jordan chasing down his old mate, Jordan Collard. 2 Jordans racing each other. What we're seeing here is that they know how important it is to win. It's absolutely vital. Look, a win is worth 10 points more. I mean, 10 points more. It's priceless. 4th place won't cut it.
No, absolutely. Well, if you've got a chance to go for the win, you may as well. And with these longer races, you've got a much better chance of getting over those success penalties. Lap time-wise between these two at the moment, 61 Jordan Albert, 1.3 seconds behind John Collard, and they have got ahead of Kibble, so that was for position. Yes, okay. So it was just a longer stop because of that Silver Cup success penalty that they have to take as well. So it is Jordan Collard then that leads in GT4. Now the 58 HHC car has yet to win a race this year, despite finishing on the podium in almost every race, but that non-finish at Brands Hatch last time means they're 22.5 points off the championship lead. Here is Phil Keane then. He's caught Jack Mitchell for third place overall. Yeah. So now Phil Keane, the fastest, or one of the fastest cars in this leading group, has caught one of the slowest cars in the leading group, and he needs to make sure now that this doesn't take too long. It is one thing to catch another car, but to overtake it is another matter entirely. He can't afford to waste too much time here.
Yeah, what we're about to witness is a bloke who's at the top of his game. I think he'll probably pass Mitchell pretty quickly. And look, he's lapping 1.7 seconds faster than my mate Michael O'Brien. He's second place, absolutely on the cards. There's still 21 minutes to go.
Yeah, well, he's got time if he gets past this number 10 car quickly, which he does. He goes up the inside into Redgate corner, but the door is closed in his face. Jack Mitchell's not going to make this easy. Why should he? This is for third place overall, and Phil Keane is getting a little bit frustrated here. Right, let's very quickly head back down to Bryn in the pits.
Yeah, thanks very much there to Andy and to Graham. I've got here Conor O'Brien handing over to Patrick a few moments ago. Now, hopefully you guys aren't going to have what happened at Brands Hatch happen today.
Yeah, touch wood we don't have that. It was gutting way to win that day, you know, but we're looking good. Just happy to at the moment. Hopefully Patrick can get a hustle on with this Mustang and see if we can get any closer to it, really.
Well, I'm just looking at the timing screens right now, trying to work out exactly where you are. All pit stops done, all pit stops around you, so it's worked out quite nicely.
Yeah,
at the moment.
Yeah, it worked out really nice. We done an early stop with the safety car to start the race, so we were kind of one pit stop up ahead of everyone else, so we kind of knew it was either going to pay out or we were going to lose, but, you know, it is what it is. Hopefully we just need some more good points and another good finish, really.
And just very, very quickly, tell us what it was like after the race at Brands Hatch. What did the conversations go like since then?
Yeah, it was an interesting one. I disappeared off and left it to the team to deal with, and to be fair, they've done a good job, so there's a lot more respect, and both cars have driven really well this weekend, and both respected each other, and it's been really good.
Great stuff, thank you very much. There you go, Andy, they've kissed and made up.
Well, there we go, that's interesting stuff. Thanks, Bryn. Meanwhile, Phil Keane is into third place ahead of Jack Mitchell. Perfect timing there. Just as the interview finished, he made the move into Redgate, and the Lamborghini is through. Right, next job, catch and overtake Michael O'Brien, who is 3.7 seconds further up the road. Keane is 9.9 off the lead still, so that gap hasn't changed really since he came out of the pit lane. So he's not lost any time stuck behind Jack Mitchell, but he's lost time in the sense that was 5 minutes now that he spent following the McLaren, not chasing after the cars in front.
Yeah, I mean, even though following him, his pace was good, I'll be fascinated to see what sort of speed Keane's got in him. I'm moderately convinced he's going to catch Michael O'Brien in the time we've got, and I think Michael's tyres are in trouble. Although his pace, he just managed to 28.7, but we'll wait and see. Keane is operating on a different level today, isn't he? He's absolutely on it. And as I said earlier, he's got a lot of pressure on him from Sandy Mitchell. Mitchell, don't forget, carries a heavier car.
Yeah.
You know, because he's not a Pro-Am car. He's got a lot more weight in the car, and his performance has been stunning over the last few races. But Phil Keane's showing his true class here.
Yeah, he is. He's already gapping the McLaren, isn't he? In the middle sector on this lap, Phil Keane was about 3/4 of a second quicker than Jack Mitchell. So as he comes across the start-finish line, he's now 9.2 seconds away from the race lead. That was the first lap for a while. He was quicker than the leader, and he wasn't just a little bit quicker. He was 8/10 quicker than the race leader.
Here we go. This is what I'm talking about. He's been told on the radio that you can win this thing.
Yeah.
If you punch in 27s every lap, if you punch in low 28s every lap, he can win this thing. We've got 18 minutes. How many laps is that left to go, Andy? About 8, 9 laps. Is that about right?
Yeah, well, about a minute and a half, aren't they, a lap? So we should get about 12 laps or so.
About
we should get in here.
12 laps, okay. And you're better at maths than me.
Oh,
and
I'm
then,
not.
and so then he's lapping. He needs to lap what? 3/4 of a second a lap faster to catch the leader.
Which is doable, I think,
doable.
but he's got to first overcome Michael O'Brien and leave himself time to actually do something about Patrick Ujala when he gets there. So you always need to work a few laps ahead of that, don't you, to make sure that you leave yourself enough time to do it. It's going to be fascinating, this. GT4, by the way, it's still Jordan Collard leading, now by 1.2 seconds over Jordan Albert. So actually, we mentioned earlier on that HHC were leading the class, and that gap is going out rather than down. And Patrick Kibble in third place is actually lapping quicker than the pair of them, but he is about 12.5 seconds or so off the class lead. So we will cut to that if anything particularly interesting happens. But right now, HHC, whilst the championship leading car is having a bit of a nightmare day, the 58 car looks set to pick up maybe their first win of the year. This is Ollie Wilkinson then, 5th position. I think Optimum will be a little disappointed that when this is all shaken out, they're down in 5th place, because they could so easily have been up there fighting for their first win of the year.
Yeah, well, did he defend too hard? Did he cost himself time? I mean, look at his pace. He's 1.2 seconds quicker than the car ahead of him. That's tough. Yeah. He's on better rubber. That's as simple as that. He stopped much later, didn't he? Yeah. And so, I mean, how far away is he from the car ahead? 2.5 seconds. That looks like a job done, really, doesn't it? Yeah,
Jack Mitchell is struggling, I think, because they were earlier into the pit lane than the rest, so those tyres are being asked to go further. Phil Keane started this lap 1.8 seconds behind Michael O'Brien. In the first sector, he was 3/100ths quicker than Michael. The middle sectors are just about to be completed now. And let's see if
that's
Phil
not
Keane...
where he's quickest. He's quicker in sector 2 and sector 3.
Yeah, well, he's 0.2, more than 0.2, about a quarter of a second quicker in sector 2. In sector 3, definitely is where the Lamborghini has always been strong. It's got good change of direction, good acceleration out the tight corners. There is the gap. Visually, Phil Keane then is not that far behind Michael O'Brien. And I think give him another lap or so, and he's going to be right on the tail. Although that mistake,
he missed the apex.
Yeah, that wasn't ideal, was it? We saw Adam Ballard doing that before. So for all this talk about how good the Lamborghini is through the tight corners, it doesn't seem to be stopping particularly well.
Adam has been giving him training.
Quite possibly. Phil knows this place like the back of his hand. Though he knows this car as well like the back of his hand. Phil Keane, Volvo Motorsport, Lamborghinis, they just go together really well. And wouldn't it be fitting if at this circuit of all circuits they could become the first double winners of the year?
Despite that mistake, he was still quicker than Michael in sector 3, and the overall lap was 4/10 almost quicker. This is on. Yeah,
absolutely. I was about to mention the car 18 was on its 4th warning for track limits, but before I had the chance to tell you about that, it exceeded them again and got given a drive-through penalty. So car number 18, which is 10th place, by the way, after they brought out that one and only safety car we've had so far. Marco Mapelli in the car in 10th position. They will lose that 10th place to Joe Osborne in the Balf Motorsport car, who's back in for his second and final stint now. But they shouldn't fall much further back than that. Critically, though, that will put them out of the points. WPI, or at least by Gligo, was 5th place in the championship. So this is going to cost him, realistically, you'd have to say, a shot at the title this year. There's confirmation on your screen of that track limits penalty. As also on your screen, more interestingly in a way, the battle for second place. Michael O'Brien and Phil Keane, second place. Look how much later the Lamborghini was on the brakes.
Yeah, I was interested to see which car's stronger where, and Phil launched the car into the S's. I mean, he's already starting to have a look. Michael's not daft, he knows that's not going to happen, but it'd be interesting to see. Phil's just got so much more confidence at this stage of the race, hasn't he? I mean, I think I'm right in saying his tyres are younger than Michael's, aren't they?
Yes.
Michael's already done, look, he's defending early. Phil's chucked it, he's going further than...
Oh, lovely.
Beautiful. I mean, sorry, that was absolute textbook. But Michael covered the line too early there, and it slowed his entry.
Well, that's exactly the move that Phil Keane pulled on Jack Mitchell a lap or so earlier as well. So that is his place that he's strong. Now, if I was round racing, I'd be telling Patrick Ujala, okay, first of all, you've got Phil Keane coming. He is quicker than you. He probably will catch you. Also, defend into Redgate Corner, because that's clearly where Phil is feeling strong. That Lamborghini accelerates off Goddard's really well, puts him in the window to have a go on the brakes, and then it's stopping really nicely into that first corner as well. And so Phil Keane, there is the man he's chasing, Patrick Ujala, who goes past the 95 car that runs third in GT4 and is still no closer to the GT4 leaders than it was. Although Jordan Collard is now only 1 second ahead of Jordan Albert, the top two in GT4 are closing together slightly. But Phil Keane then, the starting point is about 8.5 seconds that he's got to gain, and he's got 13 minutes to do it.
It's tough ask.
It's touch and go, this, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I'm just trying to look where they are in terms of where's the strips. We know how good that Mercedes is in sectors 1 and 2. Yeah. We've seen it against the Lamborghini earlier in the race, and we know it was really, really strong there. So we're going to have to wait and see again. I think it's still at around that 3/4 of a second every lap that Phil needs to win this, well, to catch the leader.
Yeah, I'd say so. We've probably got about 8 laps to go, I reckon. Over the course of that lap, then, Phil Keane was a 1/10.5 quicker, despite the overtake that he was having to make as well. Now, yeah, so this is something that's been bubbling away for the last half hour or so. I've been keeping an eye on the SRO app, which all of the teams discuss various things on, and they've been discussing cars 2 and 69 have been under investigation for a while for an incident that we don't really know what it was. It's going to be investigated after the race. Now, those two made contact at the very start of the race, but it was decided by Peter Daly, the clerk of the course, no further action. So either they've come together again since then, or maybe an appeal has been lodged or something by Ram Racing. But either way, cars 2 and 69, the cars that run 3rd and 1st respectively in this race, an incident involving those two will be investigated after the race.
But what was introduced by SRO, the series organiser, last year, was a real-time complaint system.
Yes.
It's not been in place before, but you can now write your rant and go straight to race control. And that's clearly what's going on here. Well, either car 2 or car 69. I'm going to guess it's car 69 because, car 2 rather, because they're behind 69. So they've obviously got into a major rant online and they're demanding an investigation.
Yeah, well, we're going to try and ask race control and find out, get a bit more clarity on exactly what the incident in question is. Hopefully it doesn't put a shadow over the end of the race, but for now we will focus on the gap, which is coming down by a whopping 0.003 of a second that time. So Phil Keane and Patrick Vignala essentially matching each other. Interestingly, Keane in the first sector was over a 1/10 quicker. So it's the rest of the lap. It's the middle sector, really, isn't it? Traffic there, though, for the 69 car. No, and these are the GT4 leaders that they're going past now, Jordan Collard and Jordan Albert. This gap between the HHC McLaren and the Academy Mustang keeps fluctuating between about 1 second and 1.5 seconds. It's changing lap by lap, but I don't think Jordan Albert has enough pace that he's going to be able to close in on the McLaren unless Jordan Collard makes a mistake. 58, as I said, looking for their first win of the year. 69 in GT3 are also looking for their first victories. And if 69 can hang on, they will be the 6th different winner from 6 races. I can't remember the last time we started a season in that manner, and honestly there are that many other cars out there that could win races. I wouldn't be surprised if no one manages to win 2 races this year, as high as the level of competition has been. Phil Keane, though, will want to make sure that doesn't happen. How's he doing on this lap? 2 and a bit tenths quicker in the first sector.
Look at the second sector.
Yeah, that's where the Mercedes is strong, isn't it? The fast sweeping corners. That front engine Mercedes just has the grip.
No, actually, sorry to correct you, second sector, Phil Keane,
a 34
almost a second quicker. So, game on.
Yes, now we saw the traffic at the Old Hairpin. I think that's just about at the start of the second sector, isn't it? So that might explain it. But yeah, you're right. It was a 35.2 for Kajala, a 34.4 for Keane, my mistake. And now 7.4 seconds is the gap. So it came down by 1.3 that time. Now, if you can do that every time, he can get there. But how much of that was down to Phil Keane's pace? How much of it was down to Kajala hitting traffic?
Phil Keane just at 27.9. No one's in that pace. No one. Well, I say that. Obviously, Sandy Mitchell Sandy Mitchell on a 27.6. He's not on newer tyres, is he?
No, that's impressive.
Okay, so what we're learning from this is that the Barwell Lamborghinis are ridiculously quick at the end of a 3-hour race.
Yes, that certainly seems to be the case. Sandy Mitchell setting a personal best lap on the previous lap. He wasn't the only one, actually. The Matt Manderson in the Ultimate Speed Aston Martin also set a personal best. Pretty impressive this late into the race. Tyres obviously get changed at every pit stop, but the track conditions deteriorate as more and more debris and rubbish gets strewn across the road. So it's rare that we see the fastest laps of the race coming in this deep into the 3-hour encounter, which is now inside the final 10 minutes. 8 minutes and 3/4 left on the clock on this lap. Again, first sector Keane is fractionally quicker. Second sector though he is slower. So
he is, yeah.
And this time Kajala is back in the 34s in the middle sector. So it must have been the traffic lap ago.
Okay. It's interesting. Every time I watch Phil Keane go into the Melbourne hairpin, I want to shut my eyes. I don't know if you watch it next lap. He launches the thing in. And the thing's virtually spinning on its axis. It's amazing how much commitment he's got.
This is an important battle as well, because this is Warren Hughes, who has just got himself ahead of Chris Westmail. Chris Westmail in the 57 car was leading the championship coming into this race. The Toyota behind him is a full lap ahead of these two. And Warren Hughes, in his return to competition, former GT4 class champion in British GT is Warren Hughes, and racing in the number 22 Barwell car with Jan Klingelberg. And the number 22 car, which looks fantastic, is coming under renewed pressure now from Westmail, who wants to try and get this place back. This is basically the fight for 7th place in GT4. You are more or less guaranteed to score points wherever you finish in GT4, but the further up you finish, obviously, the more you get. And for HHC, they need better than a 7th place finish, really.
I mean, hasn't Warren Hughes done well? I'm really proud of what he's done, because he's flying the flag for us older drivers. And there's Ewan Hankey, who's a lot younger, in the same car, in the same team. Both in McLarens, both for Balfe. And if you look at their pace, even in qualifying, it's less than 1/10 between them. And Ewan lives in this thing. Warren doesn't. I think his pace has been incredible. I think he's about now, sorry Warren, but I think he's 51 years old. To have, I know his experience, but that raw pace is still there.
Yeah, exactly. Always been a quick driver, though, as Warren. I first became aware of him almost 20 years ago now as a MG driver in the British Touring Car Championship for WSR, and race winner there against some of the greats of touring car racing, and then kind of turned his attention to GT racing, as many professional racing drivers do. If you want to make a living, GT racing is kind of the place to be. And Warren Hughes, great to have him back, and I hope this isn't the last we see of him or Jan or this number 22 Balfe Motorsport McLaren, because it's a great addition, great to have more GT4 cars appearing on track this year. And not such great news for Chris Westmail, who would much rather that 22 car hadn't turned up today, because that would at least give him one more position. But he's going to have to work for this. Doesn't look as though Warren is massively quicker than Chris, though, does it? So Chris does have a chance here. If he can force a mistake out of Warren, he might be able to get the place back.
I'll tell you what he's doing right now. He's learning. He's behind the master. And honestly, genuinely, when you get a chance to race people like that, you really do watch and learn, and you find yourself almost not focusing on what you're doing, but focusing on what they're doing, and you sort of go into some kind of parallel universe of where you're almost in the car with them. Genuinely, he's got this is invaluable. You can't buy this kind of learning experience. I mean, if I were him, I wouldn't overtake him. I'd just follow the bloke and learn.
Well, Chris Westmail, I've mentioned this a few times this year, but he has made that jump from club racing last year to GT racing at the highest level in the country, and that is quite a jump to make. And the fact that he's already got a race win and a couple of podiums under his belt and is leading the championship is really, really impressive. WPI Motorsport car of Marco Mappelli comes through, which just puts this battle on ice for a second. Ahead of the field, by the way, you're not missing anything. Phil Keane on the previous lap was actually fractionally slower than Patrick Kujala. Kujala is doing a really sensational job here at matching Phil Keane's lap time. I mean, Keane is lapping a full second a lap quicker than Michael O'Brien and Jack Mitchell and Ollie Wilkinson behind, and is still not able to match Patrick Kujala. Now, Joe Osborne there, I think, did he just run wide when we had a Coppice corner? If he did, he could be in trouble, because he's on his 4th warning already for track limits. I just saw that flash up on our timing screen a moment or two ago. But he is he in a battle, Joe Osborne? No, not really. Well, he is racing Marco Mappelli, who is a little way up the road, and he's now got an exclamation mark next to his name, so I fear the next notification we will see is that Joe Osborne's being given a penalty for exceeding track limits, but they are outside of the points anyway, and of course that car not a full season entrant.
I'm just looking at the lead again for the battle for the lead, and Kujala, and what's extraordinary here, the fastest lap they did was a 28.10. That guy, on this late in a race, is lapping less than 2/10 off their best pace. How extraordinary. Whereas Phil Keane, who's still on it, he's lapping at the same pace. He's doing a 28.2 as well. But it's 7/10 slower than what we know that car's capable of. He's done a 27.5 earlier on newer tyres. But that Mercedes looks after its rubber. That's what's taken it into contention. They can still lap at their ultimate pace, even if their ultimate pace isn't quite the level of the McLaren, the Lamborghini.
And yet Sandy Mitchell in the other Barwell car with the extra ballast, because it's a Silver Cup car, they set their fastest lap of the race on the 110th lap, only 4 laps ago. So maybe, who knows, we can only speculate, but Phil Keane on that lap was actually a second quicker, so the gap's back down to 6.3, but there's only 3.5 minutes to go now, so it looks as though Ram Racing are in the box seat here. They have this car has had 2 podium finishes this year, a 3rd place at Alton Park and a 2nd place here in the 2-hour race earlier on this season, and they have a world finish of 8. So it's been a championship campaign built on consistency rather than race wins. But if you can have a consistent championship campaign and then win a race or two, then you really are onto a winner.
Yeah, and which way was that car facing at the start of the race?
Yes, not the right way.
Not the right way. And it's extraordinary. Look, I think if this race gets won by them, it'd be because of the first stint.
Yes.
Because he did a remarkable recovery job. Sam did an incredible recovery job. I wonder, ironically, if he would have been as quick if he hadn't dropped it.
Yeah, that definitely gave him the incentive, didn't it, to kind of to fight back and reclaim the lost time. Yes, I thought this might be coming. Joe Osborne being given a 30-second post-race time penalty in lieu of a stop-go penalty for exceeding track limits. So Joe Osborne will not be particularly happy with that, but he is, as I said, out of the points anyway. Only 2 seconds behind Marco Mappelli, so he could have got back into the top 10, but that now won't happen. All traffic here for the leader. And, Kajala now, if we'd have had another 10 or 15 minutes to go, he might have gone for that, but I think he knows that he doesn't need to do anything silly here. Phil Keane is 5.8 seconds back. He took another half a second out of him on the previous lap, and in the first sector this time, another 3/10. The middle sector, you imagine, will have been affected by that traffic as well, but I think he could afford to be a bit more cautious there in the traffic. There will only be one more lap to go after this one.
Yeah, you know, you can never be conservative. I always remember a great piece of advice I got from my old teammate, Mike Roberts. It's not over till it's over. And I remember vividly racing the time I was on the last lap. I thought I was going to win. A back marker got in the way, and I came third. And you must keep battling until the last second. And only when you cross the line, maybe before the last corner, can you afford to relax.
Yeah, that's and with this amount of traffic to deal with, this is certainly not over yet. Although Kajala has now cleared the Warren Hughes and Chris Westmail scrap, so he now should have clear air pretty much to the flag, whereas Phil Keane is going to have to negotiate those two on the run into Redgate Corner. Probably he's going to catch them through Goddards and try to get them into turn number 1. Out of the final turn he goes. 1 minute left on the clock. And the sixth round of the Intelligent Money British GT Championship has been a strategically fascinating race, and it is all going to come down to the very last lap or so. It's not going to be a massive winning margin this for either of these two, but I think Patrick Kajala, he was 3.4 seconds ahead going on to the final lap of the race. He was 2.5 seconds slower on the previous lap, and we know traffic had a lot to do with that. And I don't think there is too much more of that up the road. Behind them, by the way, Michael O'Brien only 1.6 seconds ahead of Jack Mitchell, and Sandy Mitchell has put in a really great stint here, and we haven't really been able to mention him enough because he came out of the pit lane about 15 seconds behind Ollie Wilkinson. He's only 5 seconds behind him now, but again, sadly, he's just going to run out of time, I think, to actually do anything about it.
Well, they had a 20-second success penalty, didn't they, for winning? And he's only 23 seconds off the lead of the race. So I guess we can conclude that they would have been around. In fact, the battle between them and Keen Adam would be split by a tiny little, less than a second.
Yeah, that's true, but that shows that success penalty has done its job. For the 170th time then in this fantastic sixth round of the championship, Patrick Kajala is bringing the number 69 Ram Racing Mercedes into the final corner, and this time around he will see the checkered flag. It is a 6th different race winner in GT3 from as many races, and Ram Racing take the victory here at Donington Park, and with it they will close right in on the championship lead. Phil Keane brings the Barwell Lamborghini home second on that alternate strategy that they were running right from the start of the race. But it is celebrations all round at Ram Racing. Third place goes to Michael O'Brien. Another podium result for the Jensen Team Rocket RJM McLaren. And they just about fend off the 2Cs Motorsport McLaren of Jack Mitchell, who are 4th place. 5th position for Ollie Wilkinson, 6th for Sandy Mitchell and Rob Collard, the winners last time out. So I'll work out the points in a moment, but they're definitely going to lose some points, obviously, to the Ram car that was second in the championship. In GT4, it looks as though it is going to be HHC Motorsport who come out on top here, although a bit of traffic here for the leader to deal with right at the end of the race. That is the David Sejikowski driven BMW, which is not making life too easy for Jordan Collard, but Jordan Collard is going to bring the number 58 car that he shares with Patrick Mathiasen across the start-finish line as a first-time winner in the championship this year. Their first victory of the season. Second place goes to the winners last time at Brands Hatch Academy Motorsport, and third position, just coming out of the final corner, is the 95 Aston Martin, and that will be redemption for what happened at Brands Hatch, because they were fighting for third place then when they got nerfed off into the gravel, and it's 95's Conor O'Brien and Patrick Kibble who come home third place in GT4. And just like that, 3 hours is over. I mean, that was a fascinating race, and it was another one of those races where you really didn't know what the outcome was going to be until right at the end. And I'm really, really happy for Ram Racing, because this has been a long time coming.
Yeah, and Jeff Kingston, who runs that car, will be his first GT3 win, so well done to him. But look, I'm just trying to work out, what did we just learn from that race? Well, we learned that the Mustang in GT4, which has only finished just over a second behind the leader, we've learned that thing is quick, because he had a big success penalty from winning last time out. So that car is on song. They're going to have another penalty at Snet next time round, aren't they? But that car's quick. We also learned what we already knew, that the Mercedes is kind on its tyres, and that the McLaren isn't kind on its tyres. And we also learned that Adam Ballon can go head-to-head with semi-professional race drivers, and actually he's quick enough to get the car into second place. Come on, let's give the guys some credit here.
Oh, yeah.
They don't get any benefit other than a bit less weight in the car, and the blokes brought it home in second place.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a good result, that, for Barwell Motorsport, but it's Ram Racing that take the race victory. Sam Dehan and Patrick Kudjala with their first win of the year, their first win together as well, of course. Adam Ballon and Phil Keane come home in second place and score some valuable points. They're very much still in contention with that result, whilst Michael O'Brien and James Baldwin, the same can be said of them, in third. Jordan Witt and Jack Mitchell for 2Cs are fourth, with Ollie Wilkinson and Lewis Proctor maybe a slightly disappointing fifth place in the end, but it's still a decent points haul for them, with Rob Collard and Sandy Mitchell, the championship leaders, in sixth position. Like I said, I'll break out the abacus in a moment and try and work out if they still are the championship leaders. It's going to be tight. The Audi of Senna Fielding and Richard Williams are seventh, with Richard and Sam Neary eighth for Team ABBA Racing. Yelmer Berman and Ian Loggy in the Ram Racing car that had a penalty come home next in ninth place, with Marco Mappelli and Michael Igo rounding out the top 10. In GT4, it is Dean McDonnell, no, it's not, it's John Collard and Patrick Mathiasen who take the victory for HHC Motorsport. It's Academy Motorsports, Jordan Albert and Matt Cowley who are second, with Patrick Kibble and Conor O'Brien third for TF Sport. Jamie Caroline and Dan Vaughan in the sister car are fourth, so they won't have any success penalty to serve at Snetterton next time. Ewan Hankey and Mia Fluitt are next, the one of two Pro-Am cars in the field. And it's Sam Smelt and James Kell in the Speedworks car. They had quite a quiet run in the end to sixth in class. Jan Klingelberg and Warren Hughes on their first appearance in the championship this year are next, ahead of Gus Bowers and Chris Westmail in the 57 car. And then those that have problems, David Whitmore and Lucas Edgkowski in the BMW pulled off with a mechanical issue midway through the race. Ben Hurst and Adam Hatfield in the pit lane early on, and of course Scott Mulvin and Nick Jones only completed 55 of the 117 laps.
Apologies for the language there, but they're actually just arguing at the moment about contact. So I think I just heard Phil Keane say that you're going to get a penalty for contact.
Okay. And now I'm earwigging here, which is why I'm not talking, because I thought there might be some interesting discussions after the race, but yeah, I'm trying to figure out why Phil Keane would be annoyed at Patrick Kudjala, because they were never actually anywhere near each other in their stint, so that's interesting. We know that number 2 and 69 are under investigation after the race, but I haven't yet seen Michael O'Brien or James Baldwin go over there to have a word. So
did Phil Keane see something happen? Did he see contact, and that's what he's talking about? I'm sure I heard him say that. I'm sure he said you're going to, with some colourful language, that there was a penalty coming his way.
Okay, well, we'll give you news on that as and when we get it, but for now, no news of a penalty. So number 69, Patrick Kudjala and Sam Dehan are your race winners in GT3 and GT4. It's HHC Motorsports, and that means that both of the HHC cars now have won a race this year, both times at Donington Park. So this is becoming a happy hunting ground for them. And we will momentarily be able to head down and have a word with Patrick and Sam. And the Mercedes crew become the 6th different winners of the season, and yeah, that points margin that the Barwell 78 car had is definitely going to be reduced now as a result of that, because they came home all the way down in 6th position. So see Patrick Kudjala just being summoned over to the interview area, and this well, we'll see if maybe they can shed any light on what that conversation was with Phil Keane, who's quite happy laughing and joking now with Sam Dehan, who could really rather do with getting over to the podium area. There are Mia Fluitt and Ewan Hankey, who win the Pro-Am category in GT4, and they actually had some competition this time around as well, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. I have to say, I'm quite impressed, you know. What did they finish? Is that 4th overall? 5th overall?
Yeah, not bad at all. They've had a few good results, including an overall GT4 win this year, of course. The overall winners here at Donington Park, though, are Ram Racing. Patrick Kudjala and Sam Dehan become the 6th different winners of the year, Brim.
Yeah, absolutely. 6 different winners of the year, and what a phenomenal race that was. Patrick coming down to 3 seconds at the end, being pushed by Phil and his guys.
No, not push at all. Everything under control, to be honest. So it might look from TV like that, but I was not worried at all.
So you felt it was totally in control, you were able to manage the gap?
Yes, no problem at all.
And for yourself then, Sam, looking on from the side there, trying to work out what was going on, did you get nervous at any stage?
No, not really. I think it's just, quite an emotional race coming from last place after getting tagged at the first corner. To come back, I think we had a really clean race other than that. Our stints are really good, the pit stops are great. Can't complain, I think a perfect race for us, really.
Well, fantastic. Thanks very much, Des. Well done to you.
Cheers, thank you.
Yeah, congratulations then to Ram Racing, who, I mean, they were alluding to it there, Graham. They spun at that very first corner and did an incredible job to fight back. A podium would have been a great result after that, let alone a race victory.
Yeah, you don't often face the wrong way at the start of a race and end up winning. And look, they did it on pure pace. That was just pure speed from Sandahan in the first stint. Absolutely extraordinary.
So the conversation then continues between those two. Patrick Kujala, not a man of many words, but I'm sure he is happy with the result that they have just picked up. Right, let's head down to Bryn then, who I believe has got our GT4 winners. It's Jordan Collard and Patrick Mathiasen for the first time this year on the top step of the podium.
Yeah, and I think these two are a little bit happier than Patrick's seen just there. But Patrick, well done to you, Jordan, as well. Fantastic race.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, Jordan did an amazing job in here in the end. I really pushed the car right to the limits. And yeah, the strategy went with us today, so really happy.
Now for yourself then, Jordan, when you were in the car at the very, very end, you had the Academy guys chasing you down 2.5 seconds. Any concern at any stage?
I think for about an hour straight there was concern, to be honest. No, they were really quick today as well. They've done a very good car, so yeah, no, like I said, it was just a case of being consistent. The McLaren's a really reliable car, so I knew I could get it to the end. And then yeah, just like I said, ticking over each lap, and obviously managing the GT3 traffic isn't easy, so I had him in front of me for the whole of my first stint, and then luckily behind me for the last one, which is good.
So, fantastic stuff. How would you sum up that race then in 3 words?
Get me home.
Fantastic. Well done, gents. Great win.
Brilliant answer. Well, there you go then. GT4 victory goes to the HHC Motorsport squad. I've just been doing the points in GT3, by the way. It does look like Ram Racing have just taken the championship lead with that race victory, and it's all starting to tighten up at the front of the field, with Barwell's other car coming into contention now as well. And of course in GT4, Academy doing exactly the same thing. They came into this race only 11 points off the championship leader, who did not score very well in that race. So Academy, we can't really discount them now as one of 2 teams to have won more than once this year. Onto the podium, though, go James Baldwin and Michael O'Brien, who managed to come home 3rd place overall and 2nd place, of course, in the Silver Cup in this race. There are separate championships for the Pro-Am Championship and the Silver Cup as well, and even Am Championship too for the odd entry that we get in that category. But it's the overall championship that these two are targeting. Same, of course, true of Phil Keane and Adam Ballon, who feel that they are owed, really, after last year, and they come home 2nd place. It was a valiant charge from Phil Keane to try and close in on the race leader at the end of that race, but it just wasn't quite meant to be. In the end, Ram Racing held on, and it's Sandahan and Patrick Kujala who win the 6th round of the Intelligent Money British GT Championship here from Donington Park. And I assure you they're smiling under those masks. Is Patrick always this laid back? He doesn't seem to be a particularly emotive person, does he?
Yeah, I mean, take the trophy off him if he doesn't want it either.
Indeed. Then we go to our Pro-Am podium, and it looks as though, Ian Loggy and Yelmer Berman make their way up onto the podium after a 3rd place finish in Pro-Am in GT3. This is, of course, they'll be ruining that penalty. They had some dramas here last time we visited Donington Park as well, with a couple of spins out on track, and it's a shame because they were quick all weekend long in practice and qualifying. They come home 3rd in Pro-Am, though. 2nd place for the Nearys, Richard and Sam, who continue to impress. They're not maybe making the headlines for overall race results, but they are still doing a really good job within the Pro-Am Championship. And indeed, coming into this weekend, they were right up there, 4th place in the Pro-Am Championship, coming into Donington Park. It is, of course, Phil Keane and Adam Ballon, though, who win in Pro-Am. They missed out on the overall race victory by only a few seconds, but they do at least take maximum points from the Pro-Am element of the championship. and they arrived here just behind Ram Racing's Ian Logie and Yelmer Berman in the Pro-Am category, 2 points-wise, so they'll have closed in as a result of that. Then we go to GT4, and it's TF Sport who are third place, and Conor O'Brien and Patrick Kibble third place overall in GT4. Some good points for them. The team that arrived here third in the championship, but they have managed to outscore both of the teams in front of them. They were only 5 points off the championship lead as well, so they will be back in front now as we head to Snetterton. Second place for the team that won at Brands Hatch last time out, Matt Cowley and Jordan Albert. Another really solid drive from that team. They're coming into their stride now as we go into the second half of the year, and that is the perfect time to be doing that. And they finished second place, another really, really good result for them. The win, though, in GT4 for the first time this year goes to the number 58 HHC Motorsport McLaren of Jordan Collard and Patrick Mathiasson, and that is only their second appearance on the podium this year, which more than makes up for the non-finish at Brands Hatch last time out. And you know what? They were only 22.5 points off the championship lead as well. We're going to get to Silverstone at the end of the year, and every GT4 team, more or less, is going to be in contention, I think, for the championship. It is a smaller entry, maybe, than we're used to in GT4 this year, but still a very, very competitive one. Balf Motorsport victorious in Pro-Am. They were guaranteed to be victorious in Pro-Am, but it was just a case of which of their driver lineups would get it. It was Mia Fluid and Ewan Hankey, though, who took the victory, maintaining their unbroken run of Pro-Am GT4 race victories. Although it was nice for them, I'm sure, to have a little bit of competition out there on the track today, which they haven't necessarily had throughout the rest of the year. And in the AM category in GT4, Luke Sejikowski and David Whitmore in the Century Motorsport Tagiwa BMW are the only all-AM entry. They came back, though, after their problems that they had mid-race and were able to take the victory. Some great storylines there, Graham. I mean, the GT3 battle gets a lot of the attention during race, but that GT4 championship is extremely finely poised with just 3 races to go.
Yeah, sorry, this is reminding me of my daughter's sports day. Everyone gets a trophy, right? I'm going to go and get mine in a minute. But yeah, I mean, really, really close in GT4. The grid is small, but the racing is really good quality, and the championship's absolutely wide open. But I think it's wide open in GT3. I do. And what I love watching is the Pro-Ams taking it to the silver pairings. There's no advantage in the pit stop. It's done on pure speed. And I have to say, as a bronze driver, I'm really proud of what they're achieving.
Patrick Kibble and Phil Keane, they're getting the fastest lap awards because they were the fastest individual drivers in both GT3 and GT4. And that concludes the podium ceremony, in inverted commas. It's all slightly strange this year with social distancing and whatnot, but still nice that they get their moment to collect the trophies. And as happy as they are with those trophies, I think it's the points that most of those teams are particularly happy to receive. So that was round number 6 of the Intelligent Money British GT Championship. It's been a fantastic 3 hours of racing. Be sure to join us next time at Snetterton. Thank you very much to Graham Johnson for joining me up here in the box. Thanks for your company, everyone. We'll see you again next time. Welcome back to Donington Park and the BRDC British Formula 3 Championship here in the stunning autumn sunshine. The Donington Park Grand Prix circuit, has been producing some great racing this weekend in the British Formula 3 Championship, and race 3 of the weekend should be no different at all. We've had 2 different winners from our first 2 races. Can we get a third in this one? Well, the start will be all important. We'll hopefully be able to take a look at the grid in a moment or two. We're getting notified that there may be a delayed start to this race, so I'm not sure if someone has maybe gone missing on the green flag lap, but the bulk of the field are making their way around the Melbourne hairpin, and it's Caelan Frederick that had the race win yesterday, and he is back on pole position again now in race number 3. He has Kushmani alongside him, and Ulisa Power and Sasakon Charmancol will be right behind him on row number 2. Then it's Nazim Asman and Bart Horston on row 3, Reese Ushijima and Ben Pedersen on row 4, ahead of Kian Jewis and Louis Foster rounding out the top 10. Then it's Ollie Clark and Frank Bird, Manaf Hijawi and Josh Skelton, Piers Pryor, Roberto Farrier making his debut in the championship, Josh Mason and Alex Fours rounding out the field, and that, I'm afraid, is Manaf Hijawi, who was one of the stars of race number 2 a little bit earlier on, got himself a podium, his first ever podium in the championship in race 2, but sadly he's off the road at the top of the Craner curves, and this is the reason for the delayed start. So they are going to have another green flag lap presumably in a moment or two. There's the notification from race control that the start has been delayed, which gives me a bit of time to talk about what's been going on so far this weekend. As I said, we've had 2 races already, the first of which was yesterday, won by Caelan Frederick, with Ulisa Powell second and Kushmani, the championship leader, in 3rd position. The big story there really was that there was some contact in the early stages between Kian Jewis and Louis Foster, and Jewis ended up with damaged front left suspension. Frank Bird went off the road as well to avoid them. Frank also making his first appearance of the season this weekend, and that was significant because Kian Jewis was 3rd in the championship coming into the weekend, 2nd in fact coming into the weekend, 3rd place now, and Louis Foster also was delayed in that, and he was up there 4th in the championship. So a few of our championship contenders running into difficulty. As we see the grid again now going through at the bottom of your screen, Caelan Frederick on pole position, and alongside him Kushmani, then you